You're listening to Talk Star Wars, a proud member of the Star Wars Commonwealth Podcast Network. Check us out on the web at starwarscommonwealth.com and take your first steps into a larger world. Talk Star Wars is a production of Emotionally 14. For fantastic podcasts, video series, blog posts, and much more, visit us on the web at emotionally14.com and enjoy content for the permanently teenaged. Hello there, and Happy New Year to you out there in listener land. This is Talk Star Wars episode 195 from emotionally14.com. I'm your host as always, Rob Wade, and I'm joined by the Chewie to my Han. It's Brad Hammer Barnes.
Hello there, how are you?
There. I'm good, mate. Happy New Year to you.
I'm good. Happy New Year. Yeah, exciting times.
Yes, how are things? All right?
Yeah, thingy. Yours?
Thingy?
Yeah, well, yeah. They're things, aren't they?
They are things, this is true.
Yeah.
Always things.
Thing is an adjective now. Okay. Possibly an adverb.
Probably. I've never quite figured out the adverb. I'm sure I learned it at some point when I was younger, but I've since forgotten more than I've learned, I think. Probably fair to say.
No, that's fair.
Stuff and it all pushed.
You vaguely understand adverbs, even if you learn them quite slowly.
Yeah, well, also, even if I don't understand what they are, I probably use them without thinking about it. I probably use them expertly.
I think you do, yeah. I'm enjoying the show already.
How was your Christmas?
My Christmas was good. My Christmas was great. I saw a new Star Wars movie, and then I did Christmas things. Yourself?
Yeah, I didn't see a new Star Wars movie since the last recording, obviously, but I did. I had hoped to, but Christmas and New Year have proven quite busy, so I didn't get a chance viewing if I could. But such is life. Yeah. I did not allow myself, opportune window, but then. It happens. I think what I forget is that the year that Force Awakens came out, I saw that 4 times at the cinema. And I think it was just luck of the draw that every time I had a free afternoon, nobody else was free. So I would just go to the cinema. So whereas this time, it was all family stuff until pretty much this morning, actually.
Yeah. That sounds kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, it was lovely. But at the same time, obviously, time to kind of... You can't duck away and leave your family more than once.
Not unless you're granddad on life day, no.
No, this is true, in which case you can just nip away and watch something inopportune.
Nip something out, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You can certainly do that. But and obviously, hopefully, people enjoyed the holiday special commentary.
It's next on my pile. I haven't had a chance to listen yet.
Just a jolly enjoyable premise straight away. So obviously, I know you know this, but it's Commander Cody and Rob Cast doing a commentary, and joining them is Matt Salvatore, who's watching it live for the first time.
Amazing.
Yeah. So, and you know, it's as funny as you can imagine, and then a bit more.
Yep.
Best way to explain it.
That sounds
about right.
A good time.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously we missed one last week. It was Boxing Day on our normal recording day, and so
which means something in Britain.
Absolutely, yeah. So we decided that it was best to not do that. Not least of all because I think I just got to my computer. No, not even to my computer, just to my house that evening. You know, fairly midway through the evening. So I thought, well, by the time I get home, I won't have any time to prep.
Yeah.
At that point, we'd had a decent amount of emails, so not apologies in advance. Brace yourself. It's going to be there's a fair few. Understandably, a lot of people have got stuff to say about a particular film.
Well, Caravan of Courage still continues to divide people even after all these years.
This is it, and you should hear some of the stuff they're saying about the new Jumanji. It's very odd. It's like they've watched a different movie. Because I have seen.
There's got to be a Jumanji podcast out there somewhere.
Oh, probably, yeah. And I don't know about. It probably wouldn't be a weekly one. I wouldn't have thought.
No, I mean there's
a movie every couple of years at the moment.
I mean there was a goal for about 20, but they do Star Wars podcasts.
Yeah. So what we'll do, I think, obviously you've seen the film. You established this in the intro.
Yes.
So what we'll do is we'll go through some bits and pieces that are spoiler free. From various from various sources, mostly Vesuvi, and then what we'll do is I'll call an audible and we'll go into a spoilery bit and we can talk about your thoughts on the film, and then we can hear what the listeners have to say for themselves about their point of view.
Right, so I am no spoilers from me.
No spoilers for now
until you give me the hand signal.
I will do that. The hand signal.
Okay. I get no spoilers.
But you can speak broadly. How did you find it?
I liked it.
Cool.
I didn't think it was the best movie ever. Certainly not even the best Star Wars movie. I thought it was probably landed about joint with Force Awakens for me.
Okay.
I generally really liked it. It's not perfect. For worse, some things I would have done differently. Some things would have changed. But I quite like it overall.
So Force Awakens. Last time we did the rankings, because I've got them here. Look. So it's in the same notebook. Came in the bottom half, but near the top of that, if that makes sense.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Does that sound like?
Yeah, I'd say Rise of Skywalker is probably, after one viewing, it's probably about the same.
Okay, that seems like a reasonable placement. I would say. I would kind of land, if I had to think about it, I'd probably land somewhere similar, I suppose. I'd have to give it some thought, because there are. I don't know. I feel like some of this stuff might have actually shifted anyway. So even if you don't factor in the new film.
Well, it's like the old saying goes, Rogue One will rise to the top.
Yes. Yeah, it is the cream of the Star Wars Vader corridor scene. Not least of all because still
Vader corridor scene.
Yeah, well, quite. But let's begin with a belated message from Vesuvi.
Okay.
This in regards to episode 193, which for those keeping score is the one before the last one. So from a couple of weeks ago. And Vesuvi writes, "Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Brad.
You're welcome, Vesuvi.
Thanks, Insurance Estimates from a galaxy far, far away." Remember those?
Forgotten, yeah.
I loved Michael's from Sydney's Would You Rather hypothetical. I'm in agreement with Brad that I'd prefer to see future installments occur some 30 years after the events of the current movie. Which is cool.
Cool. I like it when Vesuvi agrees with me. It reinforces my opinion of her.
That seems fair. You are, after all, a person on the internet. So
absolutely, yeah. I've had it verified. Well, I'm not verified on Twitter, but you know what I mean.
I think that's more of a badge of honor than being verified at this stage, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't even who keeps score. I don't know. So Vesuvi's next email is about Rise of Skywalker, and it's quite spoilery. So what we'll do is I'll skip over it, and I'm going to move to her spoiler-free Mandalorian and Resistance roundups, because there's quite a few of them.
Mate, did she not do a spoiler-free roundup of Rise of Skywalker?
She did, and it was more of like a quick capsule review, and I forgot to include it because I'm a pillock.
We've had that verified, yeah.
Yes, medically now, which is
uncalled for.
Yeah, it did seem a bit out of place. I thought, guys, is a disease is not a thing anymore? Have we really not got any other things we could rather be spending our time on? Never mind, eh? So episode 6 of The Mandalorian begins with the Razor Crest landing in a bay of what we'll come to learn is a small space station. Mark Boone Jr. Portrays Ran, an old associate of the Mandalorian who wants to hire him as one of a 5-person crew to liberate a captive aboard a maximum security transport vessel. That's really all I can tell you, aside from some other casting detail. Bill Burr plays Mayfeld, a human. Natalia Tena is Zian, a Twi'lek. Clancy Brown embodies Berg, a Deveronian. Richard Ayoade voices Zero, a droid. And Ismael Cruz Cordova portrays Kin, another Twi'lek.
Okay.
Oh, and Rick Famuyiwa returns to direct and does as fine a job as he did for episode 2, which I seem to recall she enjoyed. So I don't think that's...
Okay, cool.
He did about as good a job as he did for the last one, which I hated. I don't think it's one of those. Episode 7, you may not know, but since The Rise of Skywalker premieres tomorrow at the time of writing, Disney Plus decided to drop Chapter 7 of The Mandalorian early. I just finished it, and it was excellent. There isn't much I can reveal to keep it spoiler-free, but I will say that our protagonist, responding to a peace offering from Grief Karga, which would also clear his name with the Bounty Hunters Guild, must venture back to Sorgan, Arvala 7, and Navarro. And as the penultimate episode of Season 1 would, it ends on a cliffhanger.
Okay.
Alas, as Chapter 8 is the finale of Season 1, I won't be able to tell you much about it, but I will say that it was highly enjoyable, worthy of Taika Waititi's direction.
Good.
We get definitive spelling of the Mandalorian's name in the closed captioning, which was revealed in an interview Pedro Pascal gave a few weeks ago, but folks have been guessing on the orthography. We'll also see something that has only ever been seen in animated series. Sorry to be so vague. I think I've seen spoilers for that, and I know roughly what she means.
Okay.
I think it's also okay for me to say that viewers will be reminded that this show has stakes. Don't mess around with Moff Gideon. Other than that, I suppose you'll just have to wait, and I hope you don't get spoiled. Well, as I touched on there, I may well have done, but I'm not quite sure, so we'll leave it at that. And we've got our Resistance Roundup, so we've got 3 episodes worth of this one as well.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these, much like we've talked about in previous weeks, some of these feel quite Star Warsy, and then some of them kind of feel weird.
Kind of feel a bit, sword and sorcery. Yeah,
kind of. But hopefully they might tie in together. Station to Station begins with a few TIE fighters entering a large hangar. On the sidelines, DT-798, or Jace, is complaining to DT-533, Tam, that he's a pilot and should be flying, not hauling refueling cables. Lieutenant Gaelic calls the two over and gives them a supply mission to fulfill at a nearby supertanker fuel depot, the Titan. When the 2 First Order cadets disembark, Tam is astonished how much Titan resembles Colossus. Jace thinks the Colossus was a hunk of junk compared to the Titan. While en route to the acquisitions office, Tam walks by a technician whose clumsiness reminds her of Kaz. And that should be plenty for you to mull over. But I will add an interesting tidbit. The technicians' uniforms are based on the design first seen in a Saturday Night Live skit in which Adam Driver as Kylo Ren participates in an undercover boss situation.
Oh,
that's a bit of fun,
one of the best things Saturday Night Live's done in recent years, I think.
It really is. That and Space Pants is pretty much exclusively. The missing agent is the first of a 2-part event. It begins with someone we'll come to know as Norath Kev, running through the streets of a modest spaceport with his ball droid, clearly being chased. Norath manages to get back to his apartment. No sooner than he sends a distress call when a masked Iktochi, Axe Tagrin, breaks in and apprehends him. Over on the Colossus, they receive Norath's signal emanating from the Varkana system. Kaz wants to investigate. Captain Dozer is concerned it might be a First Order trap, but allows Kaz, Yiga, Sinara, and CB-23 to check it out. And that's all you get for now.
Okay.
As part 1. As Breakout is the conclusion to a 2-parter, I'll have to continue to be annoyingly obscure, although the title does give a clue. Suffice it to say that we'll see the Colossus hiding in a storm, as well as 3 of our heroes in electrified torture contraptions, 2 very like the one Han suffered in on Cloud City. Or the one that Poe found himself in before being rescued by Finn in The Force Awakens. I'm astonished that it doesn't have a dedicated Wikipedia article. There is an entry for torture chair, but it's a Legends device, so I've only included the general torture link. Thanks for that.
Just for Zeus.
But I am delighted to say that CB-23 finally earned her badass stamp. I didn't realise that was still a contest, but it's like Scouts, apparently. I guess.
Yeah. She got his badass badge.
Perhaps I can be more generous and specific next week. Well, let's hope so. So one more point on this one. So first of all, obviously, thank you to Vesuvi for continuing to fly the spoiler-free flag because, other people on the internet are not so considerate, which is a shame. And it would be nice it would be nice if people were better at that stuff. So we have one other spoiler-free element, which is a Weibel's Wondering.
Always enjoy those.
Yes, indeed. Do you think in the upcoming Kenobi there will be backlash towards Luke for Anakin killing a whole village of sand people?
Ooh.
I wonder about backlash, fear, even grudging respect, or it not even being a thing at all. Would you like to see the sand people explored more in Kenobi?
I'm not against having the sand people explored more, I think.
It makes sense.
I don't know that they would make any connection between Luke and Vader when no one else does.
Yeah, that's my take on it as well. Is I think I'm perfectly content to see sand people explored in more detail. They're obviously on the planet. It makes sense. And, particularly as I keep kind of alluding to, I feel like it has to stay on Tatooine to stay, to stick to the kind of how it feels like it should go. But at the same time, obviously, I know there's varying degrees of opinion on that, and that's fair enough. But, from my point of view, it feels like Kenobi should stay where he is.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's a big place, and there's lots going on there, So there's no reason why they can't make interesting stories in a single location. I'm sure they can. And I'm sure they, I hope they will.
Yeah.
If they're going to do that, then sand people make perfect sense to include.
Absolutely.
In the same way, it would be weird if they didn't have any Jawas once in the whole series. That'd be odd, right?
I mean, they're kind of indigenous, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
As I understand it.
Yeah, as far as I know, they're not exclusively, but they're indigenous to, they're definitely.
Yeah, but there's very few species that are.
Well, quite, but there's, clearly they are found on Tatooine for sure. We know this.
Yeah, we know that that's been canon for
some time.
A fair old while now, yeah.
1977, in fact. Probably even before that, maybe there's promotional stuff.
I guess so, yeah.
Could be, I don't know.
I mean, they were certainly filming it, we know this much.
Well, that's true. Now, how much of that leaked out, we don't know. But, obviously this was not the social media world, and, No. I must have been nice, I think, in a way.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
Yeah. So, yeah.
It's true, he does hate social media.
Yeah, I mean, I have my issues with it, but it's kind of one of those necessary beasts.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Such is the way of the internet, I guess. Internet will have its...
Yeah.
I reckon that'll do about do it for spoiler-free stuff. So I realise, obviously, it's been a few weeks. I think next week probably we can drop the spoilery stuff. We can just start talking about it.
Cool. That works for me.
By that point, it would have been 3 weeks, just over.
Yep.
So that's fine, I think.
Yeah.
So So what we'll do is, if for any reason people are still having not seen the film and are conscious of spoilers, now again, if you're on social media, you probably had them, haven't you? It's fair to say. But if you are, for any reason, not keen on the idea of, having elements of the plot spoiled for you, then this is the place to duck out. We'll see you next week, or when you've seen the film. Obviously, that would be the best time to come back, wouldn't it? Otherwise, yeah, let's talk some Rise of Skywalker.
All right, let's do this thing.
So, Spoiler Town.
Yeah.
You've had your warning.
Yeah.
You've probably had an ad break if you're not on Patreon.
Yeah.
It depends on,
Depends on how that works out.
Yeah, well, it fixes a particular bug as well. So it's two birds with one stone, really. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Rise of Skywalker.
Yes.
Yeah. So before we kind of dig into the reactions from the community, your extended thoughts, bearing in mind you can now talk about specifics if you wish.
As I said, generally, I really quite liked it. There were odd things I would have changed or done differently, some of which are quite minor, to be honest.
Which is, fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I'd give Babu Frick his own spin-off movie.
I would watch the hell out of that. Oh, what a character. So much character in a little tiny puppet. Fantastic.
Yeah, I was very fond of him indeed.
Yes.
No, overall, I enjoyed it. What were your thoughts? Have you had any extra thoughts since the last episode, I suppose?
Nothing that kind of drastically changes my point of view. I've had some kind of, I've kind of galvanized on a couple of minor points. And again, they're not things that ruin the film, but there are things that kind of niggle at me, and they haven't gone away just because. Yeah, okay. I realise there's a segment of fandom that's desperate for people's gripes to go away, but it doesn't. That's now no opinions. We got a bit of him. He was in the. He was in the film.
That was
wasn't
good.
He? Yeah.
I
I quite like that. I liked the fact they didn't go down the. Everybody can have the Force Ghost. It's like, I mean, that's kind of.
Totally.
There was already stuff in there that raised questions about the Force, and there's a lot of things like, that's a handy power that would have been really handy in various places throughout the saga.
That didn't bother me so much because it's just kind of been like an ongoing thing with Star Wars. You can't criticize. We're talking about passing a lightsaber.
Well, there was that, but also the Force healing stuff I found a bit convenient.
No, I didn't mind that. I felt like it was, Force push wasn't a thing till Phantom Menace, and Force choke wasn't a thing until, Force choke was considered a new hope, Force lightning wasn't a thing until Return of the Jedi.
Force choke wasn't a thing until the first 5 minutes of Star Wars.
Okay. Shut your face. Force lightning wasn't a thing to Return of the Jedi, so I don't feel it's fair to criticise Rise of Skywalker for the same thing.
I disagree. I think that 40 years of storytelling and this has got a. I think the problem is it's the end of all of it, right? It's the end of the Skywalker saga. Now, anything you introduce here is introduced in the last episode of the series. Much like we were talking about how it would make no sense to put Thrawn in there because it hasn't been earned.
Yep.
Now, I would contest that there were plenty of things in that film that weren't earned that they did anyway, but but in terms of putting a character in who's just in there that's only familiar to the deep cut kind of appreciating crowd, that's not how you make a movie make 2.5 billion like End.
Well, yeah.
That's not how you make it the most popular movie of all time. And
it's
actually,
not going to be.
No, well, I mean, yes and no, because I feel like on the one hand, we know it's not going to be. It's going to. I think it will break $1 billion. I think that's fair Fair to surmise. It's still doing quite well. It's got more legs than Last Jedi, I think, in terms of Last Jedi, if I recall correctly, had a much bigger drop off as the weeks went on, whereas Rise of Skywalker has kind of held a bit steadier. But the last film in the saga, I don't think it's unreasonable to suggest that it should be making more waves in the box office takings. I think that people who say, "Oh, of course, it's not going to be the biggest movie of all time." Well, why not? It's 42. It closes a 42-year story. It should be important. It should be one of the most important cultural events of this generation. And actually, I don't think it necessarily has that gravitas to it.
No, it doesn't.
No, but it's disappointing. Endgame managed to do that, but I was talking about things that were earned. I feel like culturally, Episode 9 should have earned that, but maybe it hasn't for other reasons. I don't know, but it just seems to me like this kind of idea that it was never going to do Endgame money. Well, why not? Avatar did Endgame money, and Avatar was a self-contained story in its own. It was the first film in a series, and it managed to do. It was the top of the box office until Endgame took it. Yeah, and that's a film out of nowhere. It just seems to me very odd that people are kind of so. I mean, the discussion around box office is messy and complicated anyway, because it's one of those things you can conveniently use and then drop when it doesn't suit your narrative. And obviously, I'm not trying to do that. I'm just saying, it seems to me like the last a film that redefines the saga, should have that gravitas to it, and the fact that it doesn't is confusing to me. And I'm sure people will speculate for years on why that is, and I'm sure that I don't know about often, but I sometimes feel like when I talk about stuff in the moment, in the reactionary sense, when the movie's just come out, I've just seen it, these are my points of view, I get a lot of blowback. Well, and I don't mean to say I'm being abused or anything like that, but people tend to take umbrage with my opinions quite strongly. And then a couple of years later... What's your face, mate? They've kind of... Yeah, I mean, there is that. But, I mean, this is radio, so how... I don't understand how this happens. But people... with Last Jedi particularly, I was... we used to get regular emails about these things. Yeah. It was like, I disagree. And that's fine. And it was good conversation. It was fantastic. But after a couple of years, a lot of the people who were doing that just came around to my way of thinking over time. I don't know whether that will happen or whether I'll go the other way. It's kind of remains to be seen. Obviously, we're still only a couple of weeks from the actual release, so it's kind of hard to see where it's going to go from here. But certainly in the time since the movie came out and since I saw it, my general point of view hasn't changed drastically. Okay, I think it's a perfectly enjoyable experience. I think it's atrociously paced. I still stand by that. And I don't think anybody, even the people who really like it, don't disagree with with that particular point, because you'd have to be just oblivious at that point. I feel like to not acknowledge that it is all over the place in the first act. It's breakneck pace. Yeah, totally. This idea that you could drop Palpatine's back in the crawl. That's mad. Yeah, I liked your idea the week before, about how that should have been the end of Last Jedi. And I don't necessarily agree with the theory that 7, 8, and 9 should all have been one vision. I don't think necessarily it should have been the J.J. Abrams trilogy or the Rian Johnson trilogy. It could have been worse. It could have been 3 different directors, lest we forget. Well, I think the format of that, you know what? I think even that format would have worked if they talked to each other about how one was going to end and the next one was going to start. Yeah. That's it. I think they could have gone off and done their own thing, so long as Rian Johnson agreed with J.J. Abrams about how Force Awakens was going to end and how Last Jedi was going to start. Yeah. And then again at the other end, if they worked on the dovetailing of it so it tied together a little more, that would have gone a long way towards unifying them. I think that's fair. I do still feel like it would have been good to have one singular vision, but I don't necessarily feel like that has to be the director's vision. That could be a singular narrative vision. If there was one, if they had like a group who oversees the story, right? Yeah, would have been a really good idea. I don't know what they do, right? No, I don't know what they do. I've become even less convinced that they do. I don't know what. I don't understand. I don't understand what they do, because the more I read about, you know, I think I mentioned it in the review that it was from the TV spot, the whole flying stormtrooper thing, and they were all surprised, except that two of them should have seen it before. It's things like that. That for me is what a story group is supposed to do. It's supposed to go, well, hang on, that doesn't make sense because in the comics we've got him working in the first, you know, in the whole, it's Finn's story. They've got him working in the First Order. Like that whole thing is his arc. It's baffling to me. I don't understand. I'm trying my best to get my head around it, and I've not managed in the 2 or so weeks. What are they doing? Like, and you know, say the pacing, it doesn't kill things, but it does dampen them for me. Yeah, it dampens Poe's backstory because Poe is supposed to have been this guy who's been a Resistance pilot through. You know, he's been in the comics. I think he's a Republic pilot first. Yep, and then he defects. Yeah. And then obviously before that, we're supposed to then be like, oh, he's actually also this kind of shadier character. And it felt a little forced to me, like it was like, let's make him more interesting. But not in a way that kind of, it would have been nice to have a bit more of that.
Well, quite, yeah.
It went, that was the entire arc of that particular piece was him hot wiring a bike, Finn going, how do you know how to do that? And then about 20 minutes later, they explain how he knows how to do that. And that was it. Yeah, that's as far as it went in terms of explaining that away, and it just felt to me like stuff like that was what the pacing ended up making suffer.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, so that's kind of my sense of it. So the big thing I feared was Palpatine's back because reasons, and that sort of felt like what we got.
Yeah, as I said earlier, one of the changes I would have made was I would have just. Some kind of, it could have been Wizards in Space technobabble, but some kind of explanation about how Palpatine was back. And it only needed to be 2 sentences. I'd have settled for a sentence of a crawl, but the fact there was nothing was weird.
I found it quite cheap that Palpatine was announced in the crawl at all.
Yes, I thought it was, I don't know about cheap, but it was certainly a surprise.
It just seemed very kind of, don't worry about it. There you go. Like, you know how kind of, let's say I've been saying like I didn't want it to be just sort of discarded as, you know, brought up and chucked aside immediately. And it was already, by the time the crawl was done, it felt like that had happened already. Yeah. It's like Palpatine's back. Here we go. All aboard the exposition train because it's fast.
Yes.
Because it was like a bullet train at times.
It was
insane. But yeah, the pacing generally was just particularly unfortunate. So let's have a look at some reactions to this, and maybe this will kind of give us some kind of jumping off points. So Vesuvi wrote on this one. Thanks, Rob Wade. Thanks, Robcast. Thanks and welcome back, Mark Godsif. I so enjoyed this show.
None taken.
I absolutely agree that the sequel trilogy would have benefited from a singular directorial vision or style. I agree episode 9 seemed too jam-packed and a laundry list of addressed complaints. But I also feel that J.J. Abrams and Chris Terrio did as well as anyone could considering what they were trying to do. That I will agree with. That given what they had, and I think I touched on it in the long review, but I sort of feel sometimes like I get this with chocolate bars. Too much choice gives me too many choices and I end up making no decision at all. I can be in a branch of W.H. Smith's, other shops are available, and they've got a shelf full of different chocolate bars, all of which I like. Right. And I can go for any of them and be happy. And I'll spend 5 minutes just looking at them all going, I could go for any of these. And I'll end up just going, oh, sorry, I've got my train to catch. And I'll miss out on and I won't have anything. Okay. And the End of Last Jedi, because they'd kind of, a lot of the plot threads, there weren't many dangling. It was it was very open. It sort of feels like you almost kind of wanted a tiny steer. Just something you could kind of go with. Like, this is what I said about, it would have been cool. And it was never intended to be like I wish, they should have done it differently. I'll be setting up my petition. It was purely like it would have been cool to have the end of episode 8 be that they got a response to their transmission, but all it said was revenge. And that's it. And then it's like, that's an intrigue you can build on. Cause like, that, and then in the crawl, you can say this transmission has been just broadcasting this message for the last year, and nobody knows what it means. Then at that point, you've kind of, it's still fast, but it feels slightly more played for.
I got you.
I'm going to have a hard time. People are going to have a hard time convincing me that there's a kind of a grand plan to always have Palpatine in this. It doesn't. I don't buy it. I just feel like Snoke was always kind of planned to be the big bad. Ryan killed him.
It's weird considering the amount of effort they went to with Force Awakens to establish that Snoke and Kylo Ren weren't Sith.
Yeah, well, also like to make Snoke kind of, to give him all this kind of extra power and stuff. Not so much, not extra in terms of different abilities, but just in terms of he's been able to kind of take sort of command of this new force. And also operate kind of in the shadows. That was quite an interesting arc that I would have potentially liked to see explored. And then what they end up doing is go for Palpatine.
Yep.
Now, don't get me wrong, I love Palpatine. I think we all do. But there was a time and a place for him, and it ended at the end of episode 6, and then that's kind of his... It should be about the legacy of...
I wish they played on the idea of him being all the Sith a bit more, because that was a theory I didn't come up with it, but I postulated a few weeks back this whole idea that there's only ever been one Sith. Darth Bane is Xana, is Plagueis, is Sidious.
Yeah.
I really quite liked that idea. And then the reason he lost interest in Vader as a host body was because his host body was more or less destroyed, and then he finds out that there's Luke Skywalker, and so then he has an interest in him and an interest in Rey and so on. So that kind of works for me. But I shouldn't have to, for want of a better term, headcanon that stuff. That it's a Star Wars movie. That should have been spelled out.
Yeah, I think this is the thing. I don't mind leaving some gaps for headcanon and for exploring kind of fan theories and stuff. But I think there's certain plot points that should be crucial and should be explicit. And I think that the whole, like you said, I'm all the Sith thing, in the end, it just ended up sounding like Avengers Endgame.
Yeah,
It just felt like an Endgame knockoff.
Yep.
And that's not
Reason
good.
to that.
You don't want that.
No, absolutely.
And it makes me wonder, because I've read information that suggests that the end of the film, there were some bits added to the end. Kind of, there was some exposition kind of fleshed out. Things like my original read of the ending was that Ben got yeeted off the cliff, and that was it. You never saw him again.
Oh, okay.
So that's quite an interesting thing to kind of to read, and then to see the film, and then he's in it. The whole kiss thing, which I thought was unnecessary.
I wasn't a huge fan. No,
yeah,
but,
and also
didn't ruin it either. So.
No, exactly. Like, it's one of those things. I was just like, did they really need to? And it sort of felt like this will please the Reylos, but it won't, will it? Because
you did.
They wanted them to go off into the sunset hand in hand together. And I think we've covered our feelings pretty comprehensively on what we feel on that particular subject. But people felt, it seemed to me at least, from looking at people who are kind of talking about it, that the people who were having a reasonable discussion about it, because there were some who were hyperbolic and wanted basically 50 Shades of lightsaber, 50 Shades of Grey Jedi, which you're not going to... I think ultimately there's probably some Tumblr people kind of spilling in.
Yeah,
that happens.
I think on Instagram now.
Yeah, I think that and I think they've basically just kind of spread themselves to Instagram and Twitter. That's my sense of it. But anyway, I'm sure there are perfectly fine users of that website, and there's probably the majority. I just don't know. But it sort of felt like that move was like, oh, well, this will please the Reylos, but it won't, because they want the hand in hand off into the sunset Twilight ending, basically. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I realised that we've gone off on a tangent from Vesuvi's original message.
Yeah, we should probably come back to that.
We'll come back to that. At least I'll finish. Let's at least finish one message until then. I'll convey excess.
That works.
I've already come up with numerous minor improvements, Vesuvi says. For instance, Maz's line as she handed the Medal of Bravery to Chewbacca could have been, Leia wanted you to have this, which I see as him inheriting Han's medal in addition to the one that he was given after the Royal Award ceremony in the comics. So this is another thing, right? Just giving a medal to Chewie, everybody on face value goes, oh, Chewie got a medal finally. But he did get one, and the comics cover that, and the comics have a whole arc about what happens to it. This is the kind of stuff I mean about what's going on. Personally, I would have expanded a bit more on the reanimation of Palpatine's corpse by the dark side acolytes, a.k.a. Sith Eternal, seen on Exegol. I dare say we'll get more of those details in novels or comics.
But we shouldn't have to.
Well, she goes on to say, and most certainly no one should have to rely on the supplemental material to appreciate the movies, but I'm grateful that stuff exists. That seems like a fair comment. And Rob W. was right when he observed that The Rise of Skywalker is a pastiche of what resonates with the kids of today. That's something that needs to be understood when adults are watching and analysing movies aimed at kids. Getting on board or absconding will have to be a personal decision for those lingering at the Star Wars train station after their round trip. If only there was a Star Wars train station, man, that'd be great.
Oh, that'd be great, wouldn't it? Speak of physics, I guess.
What I do disagree with is the notion that Palpatine's reanimation negates Anakin's sacrifice, because the Sith were destroyed. I see it as zombie-esque Palpatine wanting to revive the Sith Order by inhabiting Rey, but she wasn't weak enough to allow that. She died to prevent it. I also don't see any of it as retconning. Luke, when alive, was afraid and ashamed for those last few years, and that coloured his thoughts and behaviours. After his last stand and his death, he was clear, liberated. He understood his human mistakes and was able to advise Rey to do better. That feels like an evolution, not a retcon. As for the Force healing, it's my understanding that it's not an ability all Force users are able to do, or able to do to a notable degree. Some can learn it, some are born with it, but generally it's Maybelline. I mean, a limited power. That's probably something about every Force power that needs to be kept in mind. Just because it's shown doesn't mean everyone can do it as shown. And don't get me started on refractory periods. All right. Not a problem, because I don't know what it means. Refraction, I understand. Periods, I understand. In both contexts. Kind of, yeah. Additionally, I think the bit about Ben resurrecting Rey was the ultimate sign of progress, since his grandfather could never figure out how to be so selfless. Anakin wanted to keep Padme from dying for selfish reasons. Ben gave his life for someone he knew was worthy of living, and he died happy to do so. Ben did end up finishing what his grandfather started. I don't see a genetic Palpatine as living when all the Skywalkers dying as tragic. Okay. Because I'm of the opinion that one's choices define them more than their DNA strands. That strikes me as a message that resonates throughout this film. Rey adopted the Skywalker moniker because she was more of a Skywalker by her actions, and her two Skywalker masters in spectral form gave their blessings for her to do so. That's friggin' triumphant. Plus, time may prove that Ben's hand over Rey's uterus, which surely wasn't a random choice, as he resurrected her, will add a new might add a new detail in additional installments. The ultimate parting gift. That's what the kiss was. A thank you for giving Rey something she longed for since being abandoned, family and belonging. A kiss doesn't necessarily signify something romantic. No, it did just unwilling impregnation using the hand.
This gets worse and worse over time.
That would be, I would feel that would be, I don't know how best to put it, but
Rogue One's good, isn't it?
Yeah, I love Rogue One.
Yes.
Surely I would have had Hayden Christensen be seen instead of just being heard. I also would have had a bevy of Force ghosts resurrect Ben after his sacrifice. But hey, we all, as creatives, could have made a different episode 9, and many people would have hated our choices or their executions as well as loved them. I guess that is another Jedi lesson Yoda needs to come back and drive home, just continually hitting us in the nose with his cane. All right. Seems a bit harsh. And lastly, since Rob and Mark discussed it, as far as I can tell, the bridging of Kylo and Rey's minds was separate but enhanced from there being a dyad. Sheev created the mind bridge, not the dyad. The Force made them a dyad. So take a deep breath, people. Much more Star Wars is to come. You might like some of it, you might hate some of it, you might not care about some of it, you might love some of it. Welcome to the world. Your focus determines your reality. Acknowledge the validity of it all, respectfully critique it if you feel you must, but focus on what you love. May the Force be with us all. Vesuvi, Knight of the Commonwealth. P.S. I realise she doesn't have to do this, but this is emails. It's what she did. Zori Bliss, Lando, Ochi, Dio, Aplek, Cardo, Kuruk, Ren, Trudgeon, Ashar, Vikral, the Wayfinder device, and most importantly, the Force Dyad. Savor the delicious deets. PPS. Every new Star Wars thing is a new door for a new fan. Welcome. Yeah, it's a nice. Yeah, it is true. I accept that explanation in terms of the dyad. I would have liked for the film to give it to me.
I would have liked more to be made of the dyad rather than what felt like throwaway dialogue from was half heard from Palpatine.
Yeah, that's my kind of take on it exactly. I don't necessarily fall out with the idea that they've got this connection that then kind of creates things that don't normally exist, but the movie needs to tell me that.
Yeah.
You can't have Palpatine kind of half mumble it.
Yeah.
When it's already quite noisy in that movie at that point. It strikes me as odd. But there you go. So that's Vesuvi's point of view. So
okay, cool.
Yeah, well, thank you for that, Vesuvi, and you've obviously put a lot of thought into that, and we appreciate the points of view on this. And obviously, where we agree, and where we disagree, that's cool too.
We still love you.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. So I've just realised that I did promise a listener that we would read their DM we sent us on Twitter. Before we move on, I'm going to do that. So this is from Jason Strub. Or Strubber, I'm not sure. Strub, probably. Just found you guys. Excellent show. Heard your review. Had a couple of comments. The Force always brings balance to another. So therefore, there will always be the Force. Skywalker is not the only Jedi. On Rey's parents, are you sure this wasn't all planned out? For instance, let's flip the switch and assume the Emperor knows of his son. Later, he instructs one of his people to meet him and have a child with him. Now, for fun, imagine that person introduces Mara Jade, the Emperor's hand, as Rey's mother. Boom. Mind blown. It's a bit of fun. Calm down.
I'm fine.
I'm worried about your blood pressure.
Well, don't be. It's fine. I'm one who's chilled out and generally quite enjoyed Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah. As opposed to me who...
I didn't mean you. I mean, people in general seem to be.
Right. Oh, I see.
Popping a testicle on the internet.
Well, I don't like the sound of that. Okay, we're going to go to voicemail for this one. So this is from another Knight of the Commonwealth, Matt Salvatore.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Matt Salvatore. So I thought I'd email in and give you my quick reaction to the Rise of Skywalker. On a whole, I think I enjoyed this film. Lots of really positive things about this film. I really enjoyed having Rey, Finn, and Poe all on screen together. Their chemistry was fantastic. Rey and Poe having an argument about the Falcon was just great. Had a huge grin on my face the whole time. Seeing Lando again was fantastic. Every scene Lando was in was great. Zori Bliss was cool. Really kind of like how her story added an extra layer onto Poe's story, and it kind of made them just, it wasn't too much, but it just kind of deepened their characters a little bit, which was excellent. Really liked the Force connection between Rey and Kylo. I like how it got progressively more connected so that at the end we were able to transfer the Skywalker lightsaber. That was cool. Knights of Ren were cool, but I mean, not a whole lot was done with them. R2 was given absolutely nothing to do again, so that sucked. Chewie was great. I didn't think he was dead. Hux as the spy was just dumb. It was dumb. He was sold on the First Order, and it seems weird that he would go to the Resistance to take out Kylo. It would have made more sense if he started like a military coup. Another thing I really didn't like was, and this was just for me because it kind of pulled me out of the film, and I don't know, it might not be for you guys, but it kind of felt like JJ was giving the middle finger to Ryan on a couple of areas. I think the most egregious one was when with the lightsaber. I mean, if Luke had just caught the lightsaber when Rey threw it, it would have been fine. I would have been like, oh, that's kind of neat, a little bit of a redemption. But then he kind of had to come out and start talking about how a Jedi's weapon should be treated with respect, and I'm like, nope. And it just seems petty, and it just kind of pulled me out of the film. So I was a little disappointed with that. My chief gripe with this film is the Palpatine of it all. Go for Papa Palpatine. Palpatine's back, and for reasons, and he's back. Deal with it. And I think that was just kind of disappointing. Having Palpatine show up, and he showed up and blowed up. Just seems so, I don't know. I think for me personally, it kind of undoes the prophecy surrounding Anakin. And it doesn't undo Anakin's redemption. It just cheapens it a whole lot. And so it was my greatest fear going into this movie was that that they were going to undo Anakin and his story. And for me, they did. They undid it, and it just kind of cheapens it quite a bit. And I mean, it may not be for others, but for me personally, that's kind of where I landed on it. Was it cheapened it? I think having Rey be Palpatine's granddaughter was just cringy. It just seems like something you read off Reddit. I don't know. So that was a little cringy. It's kind of sad that of the Skywalker saga, a story about the Skywalkers, the ultimate hero of the Skywalker saga wasn't even a Skywalker. She was a Palpatine. So that kind of feels kind of disappointing that the Skywalkers didn't really save the galaxy. And I always kind of wanted that to be their legacy, was that they stumbled, but they eventually saved the galaxy from the Sith. Even though they became them, they kind of overcame the Sith. So I was a little disappointed that the Skywalker saga, the Skywalker family kind of ended in just this meh. Bendemption was what they're calling it. Oh boy. The kiss was weird. I did not need that. But makes the Reylos happy. Okay. Anyway, guys, I have to say I enjoyed the film. I have a couple of major gripes with it. Hopefully those kind of get ironed out as I do more and more viewings, which I know we're all going to probably be doing over this holiday season. So, Merry Christmas. Thank you guys for all you do. Bye.
Thank you, man.
Bye.
Yeah, he said bye. It's nice.
Yeah.
It didn't personalize it as such, but he kind of did. Mm-hmm. It's hard to know sometimes who's going to be on. So,
well, quite.
Yeah. Thoughts? Anything jump out at you there?
He's in pretty much total agreement with us, isn't he?
Kind of. Yeah. That's certainly the impression I've got from speaking to Matt privately, since the movie, is that he kind of came out of the movie the same way I did, which was like, yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's all right.
But say the Hux thing, that arc is, like, for me, one of the biggest wasted arcs in the whole trilogy.
Absolutely.
Finn and Hux are the ones that I feel bad for, because Hux at the beginning, not even at the beginning of episode 7, but by the time he gives the speech on Starkiller Base, he is in. Mm-hmm. He is fully on board with this, and it doesn't work for me to have him helping the Resistance, even if the ultimate goal is, to upstage Kylo Ren. He can do that without being, without feeding the Resistance intel and running the risk of the First Order's plan being undone.
Well, quite, yeah.
And I still stand by my point of view in terms of the review stuff, which says that if you do Hux properly in episode 8, you don't need Richard E. Grant. Mm-hmm. Because Hux has that history with Palpatine's legacy, because
absolutely, because as the story group knows,
yes, Hux's father is all in on this stuff.
Yeah, totally,
and always has been.
In fact, the story group should be people stepping in and saying, "Well, actually, there's another Hux you could use."
Yeah, exactly. You could just have, Daddy Hux.
They just wanted to meet Richard E. Grant. That's what it was.
Which is, I get it, because he's very. This is the thing. I can't fault him in the film. He's very good. He's very, very good, but he doesn't. Again, he doesn't. He's not needed. Like, but you could have him play.
It hurts to say that,
Daddy Hux.
Speaking of people who weren't needed, there was a lot of fuss about Dominic Monaghan being in this film, wasn't there?
Oh yeah, that's a really good point. Like, it was very strange to me that he was so kind of
a man.
He was a man in film.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
I think if you look in the credits, it might even say man in film. Dominic Monaghan.
Yeah, what it may well do.
What's his entire contribution is like 2 lines of dialogue, one of which is about Holdo maneuvers and gets slapped down.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, it's just, it's a 1 in a million shot. Like, is it though? Again, you have droids, right? Just because you've got droids that have got, like, that have been animated and puppeteered to look like they've got personalities. Not all the droids in Star Wars have personalities.
Just use a mouse droid.
Just use a mouse droid. Have it just, you can slave it up and just have it needle through anything.
Do its thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very weird to me that this is still a discussion that, it can make, but you can't do it. You can't just do it willy-nilly. Yes, you can. Why can't you? Why can't you? With no human life lost.
Explain this to me.
Yeah. No human life lost. Nobody can explain this to me. And the Finn, like I say, the Finn thing, Finn's arc
Such as it was.
Such as it was. It's just like he ends up going from this really interesting character who suddenly breaks his programming for no apparent reason. Mm-hmm. And then he just ends up shouting people's names for 3 movies.
It was a feeling.
Yeah. But this is it. Like, but that's, it's apparently people, JJ had to go out and clarify that what he was going to say to Rey before they sunk was, I can sense I have the Force.
Okay.
That's apparently a thing that's been retconned in press since the movie came out.
Yeah, I've heard that. I wasn't sure if that was an official retcon or just a fan theory.
I think it's I don't know if it's a JJ thing in terms of being specific about that's what he was going to say, but he's made it clear that he wasn't going to say I love you or anything like that. Mm-hmm. That's kind of how I took it. I took it as like he was trying to sort of talk to Rey about something sentimental.
Yeah.
But no, I didn't get anything about the Force until near the end when he started to kind of show that vague sensitivity.
Yeah.
And they had this whole thread with him and Janna where they both established that they'd both broken their programming against all the odds and a group of people had, and that's as far as they go with it.
Yeah.
It's bizarre to me. Like it's, that's a really interesting thread to pull at, and they don't bother. They just go, look at that lovely dangling thread. Anyway.
This movie made some very odd decisions about what to hint at, what to make explicit, and what to make no noises about whatsoever. And it feels like every single one of those points it misjudged completely.
Yeah, it's weird. Like it's one of those things. Like you shouldn't have to wait for the tie-in comic. Or there was a tweet from Ray Carson who did which one did she do? Was it Last Jedi novelization or Solo?
I have no idea.
Anyway, she did one of the novelizations of one of the recent films. And she said, and she's doing the Rise of Skywalker novelization. Mm-hmm. So Ray Carson tweets that the film would have to be 3 hours long, like in excess of 3 hours long in order to, to get everything that's in the novelization.
Yeah. And
there are going to be people, who are going to say that's fine because people have different ideas of what constitutes a movie experience, right? So, some, like say, children, they don't necessarily work on a bathroom schedule that suits a film of significant length. I mean, some adults don't, and that's fair enough.
Yeah.
And it strikes me, one, that there's that, but also, again, people shouldn't have to go out and buy the book to make sense of the film. Mm-hmm. This is, that is basic. That is, you can always... There's a lot to be said, for example, for anything that's been adapted, like, Harry Potter. Obviously, there's been a TV series of His Dark Materials on BBC recently, which I thought was very good, incidentally, as an aside. But those things still give you the story.
Yeah.
They don't intentionally withhold bits for pacing reasons that you then have to glean from reading the book because... Most moviegoers aren't going to do that. That's not why they go and see a movie. They don't go to a movie for homework.
Well, quite.
They don't go there to get assignments on what to go and check out next. It's mad. Like the idea that people would do that it's hubris of kind of a sort of, it's Hollywood hubris. It's like, oh well, they'll pick up anything with Star Wars on it. And I think it's fair to say that certainly the shelves in my local toy retailers, so that you can't just plonk Star Wars on everything and sell it.
That seems to be what they're learning. You'd hope.
I hope so. I've touched on before about how I feel like the Black Series has kind of lost its way because now everybody gets one, and that's not how it's always been. And I think the fact that you've got loads and loads of figures on shelves that aren't selling, is just a sign that you can't just bring out 6 figures from a video game that nobody's played yet. Charge 25 quid a piece, which is their recommended retail, and expect everybody to fill out their entire collection before the game comes out. That's not what the Black Series has always been. It's always been about, here's a character I think is really cool. They're a little bit cult. You can't get them in they're not the ones that the marketing is going to be thrown behind, generally speaking. It's almost like the meme-worthy ones.
Yeah, I got you.
Like the most popular Black Series figure that springs to mind is the Obi-Wan from sort of Episode 3, in his Episode 3 garb.
Okay.
And he's a popular character in Episode 3, but a lot of it's because of memes.
Yeah,
just because of hello there. It's a meme-worthy line. I think it's a very astute choice on Lucas's part. I think he preempted things like Reddit before they even happened. More power to him.
I think you're possibly right.
Yeah, I think he kind of gets that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the much like you said about you don't necessarily do you feel like there's a lot of choices that were made and none of them seem to have been made effectively. I agree. I think it's, there's this weird kind of disconnect with these films recently in recent years that people will just accept it. And some will, but some people will, object to that kind of level of simplification. And, obviously it goes without saying, hopefully, that some people object to it in a way that is too far and unacceptable. And, they should be kind of condemned in no uncertain terms. But, I don't think it's enough anymore to put out a film, certainly with something, you think about how fervent the fan base is for Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's too. I don't think you can do that with Star Wars. I think they are, and I think that's the problem. Well, that's it. What I mean is, I don't think you can do it without upsetting people.
Yeah,
and I granted, I kind of have some sympathy for the notion that people who are upset about it should kind of just take a step back and accept that it's a movie, and that's fair. But I also think that people who are upset should also take a step back and realize that being difficult about it doesn't make you any better just because you're happy with your point of view. So, some people need more. What's the word? Need more resolution for things.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I guess I've never thought about it in those terms, but probably.
Yeah.
So our next message comes from Diecast Desperado.
Hello, Diecast Desperado.
Greetings, gents. I'm back. It's been a while since I last wrote. I put Star Wars on the back burner after my disappointment with The Last Jedi. I was hopeful that The Rise of Skywalker would reawaken my love for Star Wars, and it did.
Hey.
I absolutely love The Rise of Skywalker. Of course, it would have been better as 2 films instead of 1, but circumstances dictated that JJ do it all in 1 film, and I think he did an amazing job. I love Zori Bliss. I hope we get more. I hope we get more content with her. Perhaps a standalone film. I think a film might be a stretch. Turning up in a TV series and see how it goes, maybe.
Yeah, totally.
Do what they did with Black Widow. Have her turn up in stuff and then give her a film.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that could work. You need to. I think this is the thing. We're as a fandom, we can be quite reactionary in terms of like that person gets. Yeah, I want the whole film for that one character. Yeah. Like,
yeah.
I mean,
Babu Frick's different. A buddy cop TV show with her and Babu Frick. Yeah,
now
absolutely.
You're talking.
Yeah.
And you don't because
in Miami, in the 80s.
You can make it 6 episodes.
Yeah,
and from what I understand, I didn't realise this, but Mandalorian's only half an hour ago.
I learned that recently.
Yeah,
yes.
I thought it was longer. I assumed it was sort of standard Netflix 45 to 50.
That's what I'd assumed, but
apparently not.
It's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. It's as long as it needs to be by the sounds of it, and it's been highly regarded despite the difference in that sort of level of length between that and something like your Thrones or your.
God, you've said that a few times, haven't you?
Yeah, I suppose I have. Where did I get to? I wanted to touch on one of the points you made. You had an issue with Rey reflecting Palpatine's attack back at him, but I thought it was just the same thing that Mace Lefty Windu did to him in Episode 3, using 2 lightsabers instead of 1. I look forward to hearing your thoughts about this. May the Force be with you, Desperado. Yeah, it is pretty much the same. This is why I thought Palpatine might be wise to it.
Yeah, okay.
It was I touched on it before about when I talked about the pastiche of popular movies the kids like nowadays. It's just the Elder Wand at the end of Potter. It strikes me as the same thing.
I didn't get much Potter vibe from this movie, with the disclaimer that I've read all the Potter books once and have seen all the movies once, so I'm far from an expert on them.
No, that's fair.
If anything, I was going to say the things I would have done. One of the things I would have done differently, as mentioned, I'm very sorry, said there are 3 things I would have done differently.
Okay.
As I mentioned, the first one was give me some technobabble about why Palpatine is back. Don't just leave it. The ending, I didn't hate it, but it felt more Marvel than Star Wars.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if that's just kind of a cinema zeitgeist at the moment, and that's just the way action movies look these days, and Star Wars is a sci-fi action movie. But that was the only thing I felt from it. It worked because she used her lightsaber for defense, not for attack, which is the important thing. She didn't strike him down; he struck himself down.
Yeah.
As an ending, I thought that was fine. But yeah, there was just something, the percussiveness of it, I think, felt like something from a Thor movie.
Right. Okay. Yeah. They say, just to me, it felt like it felt very kind of typical of other movies. You know, I say Endgame is the one that springs to mind because it's, I have an evil saying, I have a good saying that's similar.
Yeah.
And also killing them with their own weapon, which is what Iron Man does to Thanos in Endgame.
It is, yes.
You know, it seems like, and again, it's like the Potter thing with the Elder Wand. He disarms him, and it's like, oh, I got the Elder Wand, and it's doing the bad spell, and it hits Voldemort. Oh no, that's kind of how it felt to me. It felt like that kind of level of. But on the plus side, at least what it wasn't was. Then you find out that she's holding Palpatine's head and it's all like a force vision she's implanted into his mind, like Breaking Dawn Part 2, which is one of the worst films I've ever seen in my life.
It is one of the worst films.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Part 2. I've seen the first 3 and kind of bailed out at that point.
Yeah, Breaking Dawn Part 2 is legit one of the worst films I've ever seen in my life. Like, and just take comfort, listeners. Anybody who feels like I was, you know, or have been more negative than most about Rise of Skywalker, it is so far removed from my least favorite films of all time that it's not even funny. It's leagues apart. Don't even sweat it. It's not even my least favorite Star Wars of all time. I mean, goodness me. There's a Clone Wars animated movie, for goodness sake, that I've forgotten.
Yeah.
Such is my disdain for it. I've forgotten what happens. You know, so there you go. And then from Dave in Australia, The Rise of Skywalker. G'day, fellas. I've just seen The Rise of Skywalker and I loved it.
Cool.
I walked out of The Last Jedi miffed and became very anti that movie. I thought The Rise of Skywalker ended the saga well, with little questions left unanswered except for one. So after some drive home post Rise of Skywalker reflection, I've noted the following and would appreciate your thoughts about my points or anything else you see fit. From the first 2 movies of this sequel trilogy, without even knowing, we've witnessed a Palpatine versus Skywalker conflict without knowing it. Thing is, this conflict between them was in reverse, with the Palpatine being light and the Skywalker being dark. If story planners did have that planned out from the start, very well done indeed. After the whole saga's relationship and conflict between Palpatines and Skywalkers, the Skywalkers finally win, or rise, with Rey calling herself a Skywalker at the end, thus ending the Palpatine lineage. Well, kind of. That's not how lineages work, but yeah, I understand what people are saying about how it's like a... You know, it's a symbolic thing of like your DNA, your family doesn't define you. I get it, and I see what they're playing for, but again, that's not lineage. That's legacy almost. Yeah,
which was a different Star Wars series.
One question, yeah, it's true. I read it recently.
Still good.
It is good. One question remains, and if there is a canon story to explain this, please let me know. But when did Palpatine have a son?
As far as I know, this was the first mention of it.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Wait for the comic release, maybe. Again, I mean that one I kind of think is you don't necessarily have to do the whole Palpatine family tree in order to get that across. You can just be like, yeah, Palpatine had a son. We didn't know about it because reasons.
Totally fine with it. It didn't. Yeah. It didn't change it. It shifted your perspective on it, but it didn't overwrite it. It was like I said to you before about it was only with Phantom Menace that Darth became a title rather than a first name.
Yeah.
But we just kind of switched your perspective on it, and you can get away with stuff like that. That's absolutely fine. It didn't. Him having a son didn't contradict anything we knew.
No, exactly. Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. It's not like there's no. It doesn't. Clash with any established canon like some of the stuff, some of the minor bits we've discussed. For my mind, J.J. Abrams gave The Last Jedi the bird, for want of a better term, in two moments. Yeah, boy. When Rey threw her lightsaber into the fire and Luke caught it, telling her a Jedi's weapon deserves more respect than that. When a rebel suggested they use the Holdo maneuver in the big end battle, but is told it's a 1 in a million move, it won't work. I feel here that 2 major aspects of The Last Jedi that angered fans were put to rest. Also, some Jedi kudos was given back to Luke when we see him use the Force to raise his X-Wing from the water. A thing he failed at once is now an achievement and a demonstration to the audience of his growth. It is almost like, this is me editorializing rather than Dave's point. It's almost like being completely with the living Force makes you more powerful in it.
Yep.
Who knew?
Not me. I'm an idiot.
I may have to watch The Last Jedi again for signs of Rey's origin, but one moment that comes to mind was when Rey beats Luke in their fight on Ahch-To, and he says something along the lines of, "I've never seen a power like this." I wonder if there are more clues in The Last Jedi that Luke and Leia knew Rey was a Palpatine. Who knows? Maybe The Last Jedi was actually a well-set-up platform for the Rise of Skywalker that we just didn't see. I think that Dave's mixed up here, because I think he's talking about two different bits.
Okay.
Because the first bit, Rey beats Luke in their fight on Ahch-To, is obviously in the rain. She sort of disarms him. His line, "I've only seen raw strength like this once before," is much earlier in the film when she's when she's doing the whole like sort of concentrating
Cave of Evil.
the Cave of Evil thing perks up. So I think there's a bit of mix up here. I'm not sure because there may be another line in there that I've forgotten. Because it's been a while since I've watched Last Jedi. But I think I get the sense that that's the one that Dave's talking about. But yeah, in terms of clues in Last Jedi, I mean, you can by all means go looking, and I'm sure people will do some efforts to connect the dots. I just think they'll be tenuous. I don't think there is I don't. These films don't feel to me like a trilogy in a overarching sense. They feel like three films numbered consecutively. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah, that's how it feels to me. And I do, obviously people always use the example of George didn't know that Luke was Vader's son and George didn't know that Luke and Leia were sister and brother. But what he didn't do was write himself into a corner where that wasn't physically possible and then have to backtrack on it and go, oh, that was, because he did I thought, personally, I think from a certain point of view is one of the greatest retcons in cinema history.
It's awful in the best way.
Well, but it's, it's explained away in a way that's like, okay, I know what you mean. It's like, it's clumsy, but it is at least, it doesn't completely unwrap everything that's been done before. Yeah. Like you can still work your way back from it. And technically you could argue that they did that with Rise of Skywalker. I just think that I'm not convinced, and I don't know that, like I say, I'd have to see something from, I'd have to see some sort of evidence to say it, but I'm not convinced that there was an overarching plan of, certainly not, hero was established in episode 7, really powerful, nobody knows why. Episode 8, there's misdirect about sending us off in a different direction. Turns out Palpatine's back. Yeah. I would be very surprised if that's written anywhere prior to last year. Yeah. I'm not convinced at all. And like I say, I'm open to persuasion, but somebody would have to do a good job of proving it to me. You can't just say, oh, well, obviously, it doesn't work that way.
I know.
No, I know you know. Just saying.
Yeah.
Anyway, Dave continues. I really like The Rise of Skywalker. JJ and crew have ended it well with little to be answered except for the Palpatine son thing, but I guess they had to come up with something. Look forward to your thoughts. May the force be with you. Dave from Perth in Western Australia.
Thank you, Dave.
Yes, thank you, Dave. Unfortunately, Dave did add a little bit on the end, but for time reasons, I was conscious of how many emails we had, so I've cut it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, for that. And then next is a Weibel's Wondering bumper edition.
Oh, because
this is about The Rise of Skywalker. Just a few things for now. I'm still processing it. I was really worried about Palpatine being in Episode 9 because I felt it was just going back to an overused well. But the backstory of the Sith really caught my imagination in a way I've hardly felt since the OT. Granted, the whole thing did feel shoehorned in. It really feels like I missed a movie or 3 between 7 and 9. It also feels like many aspects of the story are depending on outside media to flesh out or explain altogether. Cloud is just there, no reasons why or saying who he is. I didn't care about that. Cloud was the sort of wobbly thing at the beginning. He's in the Falcon because reasons.
Oh, the one that looked like Miranda Hart.
It looked like it could be voiced by Miranda Hart, and you'd be like, yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, that tracks. That was just there, but I kind of went, oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, just random alien.
I don't know who was looking at that and expecting Cloud to be a massively important expositional character. I
mean, if more screen time than Dominic Monaghan.
Well, that's true, and at the same time, fewer lines of dialogue. Yeah, by one. And technically, sounds don't count, but I came out of the movie loving it. I see many issues the more I think on it, but I still look forward to watching it again. I was surprised to find myself enjoying the Reylo bits, primarily because she forced him to make a choice. She couldn't be with Kylo, she needed Ben, and she made him choose, facing the conflict in himself. A little chat between Rey and Leia about Ben's internal conflicts would have tied that up nicely, I think. No need for an expo dump, just an I think he feels this way sort of conversation, which would have added just enough so we could translate his facial cues. I was amazed that Adam Driver could alter his expressions in a way which made his face look lighter, like the darkness had been lifted. It might have also been subtle makeup, but I noticed alterations in his facial expressions. A lot's been made of this, actually. The fact that Adam Driver fights differently as Ben Skywalker, Ben Solo rather. He performs differently in the film. The only thing with me, and I touched on it when we did the long pull. I don't. It felt that was a bit that felt very rushed to me.
Oh, really?
The Ben redemption. I likened it to Game of Thrones. There was a lot of stuff in Game of Thrones in the last season that made perfect sense in terms of the story they were telling,
but rushed it.
But got there so fast. You're like, well, hang on, where was the bit justifying that? And that's how it felt for me with Ben. I was okay with him getting there, and I was okay with the fact that it was Leia's death, the last reach out, and the thing that sapped all her energy, which made him get there. But it struck me as way too fast. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, right?
I think that was possibly due to the lack of footage of Carrie Fisher.
It's entirely possible. Yeah, this is it. But I mean, it sort of feels like there were other ways they could have done that without. They didn't even need anybody but Adam Driver. It sort of feels like, the fact that at the beginning of the film, Palpatine, in one of, I think, the best lines in all of the saga, said, "I've been every voice inside your head."
That was so good.
It was great, right? And just that is enough seed to then run with him starting to question everything.
Yep.
That's enough, but it didn't feel like they did enough of that. It felt like they it's how it kind of felt to me. Like the beginning of the film, he's on side with Palpatine. Obviously, he's been, up until that point, he's been used to being the Supreme Leader, right? Now, I don't know. I kind of get the sense he's been doing it for kind of somewhere inside a year. I
guess so, yeah. I think it's about a year between Jedi and Rise of Skywalker was my understanding.
Yeah, likewise. That was kind of my impression of it too. And it felt like he went from, this is part of the problem for me, this Kylo Ren is very stop-start in this trilogy. He starts off conflicted in Episode 7, kills Han Solo, and you kind of leave the film thinking he's kind of gone more down the dark path. Beginning of Episode 8, we establish that he's still kind of tumultuous because Snoke's kind of riding him for it, giving him a hard time.
Yeah.
By the end of Episode 8, he's made a decision. Overthrow Snoke and take over. Do what Vader didn't do in Empire, the stuff he was talking about doing and never actually got around to doing. Right? And so he succeeded where he finished what Vader started in that respect. He overthrew the Emperor and took over.
Yes.
So he goes from that to, there's Palpatine. Palpatine's around. Right, I'm going to look into this. Oh, I've been lied to about loads of stuff. And then it's like, it seems like all the stuff that kind of softens his character happens behind the scenes.
Yeah.
That you don't see it kind of done on screen. And there's no kind of, again, it's one of those things you could fix with dialogue. It doesn't take much to have dialogue exchange between him and Rey even that's just, her sensing the conflict in him.
Yeah.
Like that, and realize it's kind of, maybe they didn't do it because it's kind of a bit Jedi. But I think that's all, those comparisons are inevitably going to be there because it's now the last film in a saga replacing Jedi. Just go for broke. Like, just use the bits from Jedi you need because the comparisons are going to be there anyway. So just, who cares?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he told a new story with familiar elements from A New Hope, and people people kind of equally
write it with it.
Yeah, people on both sides of the aisle. Some people write it off as a carbon copy, and some people say it's completely distinct, and both are wrong.
Yeah,
it's ultimately. But you could do that with Rise of Skywalker with impunity, because, like I said, everybody's going to draw those conclusions whether you do it or not. So why not just go for it and just take the bits you need to tell the story you want to tell and just do it. Anyway, James continues. The Goonies dagger seemed pointless and absurd. Visions from confiscated belongings could have done a much better job and flowed well within the story already laid out. The psychometry was already there, and they even tried to use it. All they had to do was give flashes like she had before and have her work through them, which would have shown progress for her in honing of a skill. I totally agree with that. The Goonies dagger thing, where she pulls out the little compass thing, is one of the most pointless and senseless exposition Deus Ex Machina devices I've ever seen in cinema.
That's why I loved it, but yeah, okay.
It's just, I didn't mind the dagger so much as the fact that she pulls out this thing that lines up exactly with where the Death Star wreckage.
Yeah.
It's like, what? So
and
not only
standing in that exact spot.
Yeah, exactly. You have to stand there. The Death Star has to have been exploded. It has to have landed on this planet. And this is all like, how old is this dagger?
It's brilliant.
It's like thousands of years. It makes no sense at all. It's just, it's ridiculous.
I know it makes no sense, but it makes no sense in a way that suits for genre.
I guess, but it's just
it's a pulp sci-fi stupid sword and sorcery thing, and that works. That's like saying being hit in the face with a belt doesn't knock you out unconscious for half an hour. It does in a wrestling match. In pulp sci-fi, that makes sense. It's like no one believes that a pair of glasses is a reasonable disguise for Superman, but you have to buy into it as part of the superhero genre.
But it's been established. I
think with Star Wars, you kind of have to buy into a little bit of this bullshit as well.
I would agree if it wasn't for the fact that, as James rightly points out, psychometry is already an established plot device for these characters.
Well, I mean, yes.
But, in the same way, you don't even have to... You can use the dagger. You can have the dagger, but build the psychometry into that.
Yeah.
Go for that. That makes sense to me. But it's this whole thing of drawing out the thing and it lines up with the thing, and all she has to do is stand 10 feet to the side and it won't work. It's ludicrous. And like I say, it's not so much the fact that it's ludicrous on its own, it's the fact that it's ludicrous, and they already had a plot device they could totally use, which would have made more sense, which they were already using. Just use it more. Anyway, I digress. The whole light speed skipping seems superfluous to me. That whole sequence could have been a line in the crawl.
I liked it.
I was going to say, I agree that it probably could have been a line in the crawl, but I thought it was really cool, so I'm more up with it.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. Next, Lando and Wedge seemed underutilized. Leia also, for all the talk they did. Lando, yes. No, sorry, Lando, no. I thought Lando had a good part.
I liked him.
Wedge, absolutely, yes. Yeah. I'm sure he did all right in terms of he probably got paid a few quid for that.
Yeah.
Leia, even if I agree, I don't think there's any choice, is there really?
No, absolutely.
Considering, I thought it was very impressive what they did with what they had.
Absolutely.
I'm pretty convinced, incidentally, I'd have to go back and check, but I'm pretty sure, even though they said we're not going to do any CG, I think they did a bit. I don't think they replaced. I don't think they CG'd her. Didn't do not to like a Rogue One style.
Not to a Rogue. I think that was what they were referring to. They weren't going to make. Yeah,
a brand new actor almost.
Yeah, I don't think she was necessarily more CG'd than anyone else in the shot was.
I think what might have happened. My impression was maybe they used CG to make her lips say
a bit better.
Yeah, make her say different dialogue that she didn't say in the shot. But they did. I think they did a good job, personally.
I think they did. Yes.
I think I take James's point. There was a lot of talk about her being important in the film, but I think their hands were tied on that one. I don't think there's much they could have done.
Yeah, let's not.
No. I don't even think James is. But I did agree with how Hux was handled. It seemed to fit with what we were shown of his character. It does.
I'm not sure I agree.
I agree that it shows what we've been given. I don't agree that it's a good use of his character. I think it's a massive disservice to Domhnall Gleeson. I think it's a really good character that they spent the entire trilogy just getting wrong.
Up. Yeah, I agree. I'm in agreement with you on this a few times.
On that particular one. For a movie that was marketed about being an ending, it sure left a lot of threads waving in the breeze.
Did it?
I don't know. I mean, there's some that are deliberately left, like Lando and Janna.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good one because I think that could be a comic. And that's the kind of thing that I think should be a comic.
Yeah.
It's like, it doesn't need to be in the film, but it's a nice adventure they can use if they want to. That's exactly the kind of stuff comics should be doing. Yeah. It's filling in the gaps that you don't hear, that aren't integral to the story, but are useful kind of bits of filler, and continuing the stuff that you're interested in.
Yep.
Rey's arc I liked.
Okay.
She finally had to face consequences for her anger management issues. Did she? Or did Chewbacca live?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I can't think of any consequences.
Did you at any point think Chewbacca was dead?
I don't mean this to sound like it does. I kind of hoped he was.
Give it some permanence.
Yeah, give it some permanence. James touches on it. She had issues that she wasn't keeping in check, and that would have been a consequence of it. She would have killed one of her friends, but they didn't make it stick. That's the thing with Rey for me. A lot of the stuff in this film, in this trilogy rather, all the stuff that we talk about in terms of, she went through this, she went through that, none of it sticks. Because on the other side, she's like Teflon. She just comes out unbroken, not even unbroken, just unbent by anything. Yeah, like she's not even swaying in the breeze in a hurricane. It's like it's been talked about. I don't see her becoming a Jedi like we saw in the prequels, but I think that's proper. Those Jedi were dogmatic to a fault. I think they had forgotten the pure essence of a defender of the light. I think Luke was right and wrong about them in equal measure. When you think about it, attachments are what saved the galaxy. It's the why and why we fight. Passion has a spectrum. Well, this got away from me. Turned into Weibel's Wanderings. Take care, fellas.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed the notion of Weibel's Wanderings. I'm not averse to this if you want to do them.
Yeah.
I do the long-form stuff, be my guest.
Sounds like a book of Hobbit poetry.
Yeah. There and back again, some Weibel Wanderings. And then our last message this week regarding the film, from Derek Taylor, who we've heard from many times. Always nice to hear from.
Derek.
One of the people I would say has a voice for podcasting and a voice for radio.
One of the Dereks.
It's certainly one of the Dereks. Hello again.
Hello there.
Just finished watching the film and listening to your review. My first and only review.
At the same time.
I know, right? He's adept. I don't know how he's managing that. Let's not suggest he's doing it by nefarious means, because that seems a bit harsh. Because he probably isn't.
No, I imagined him with his headphone on in the cinema.
That would be an odd one, especially because we will jump, much like we've done tonight. We've been jumping backwards and forwards around the film. You can imagine, hang on, I haven't seen that yet. And then an hour later, never mind.
Yeah. Who cares?
Yeah. It was terrific hearing Rob and Mark's review. As you mentioned, coordinating several schedules is extremely difficult. Thank you for making that happen, and props to you and Brad for continuing to produce quality content weekly.
Someone remembered me.
That also is extremely difficult.
Yeah. Brad is extremely difficult.
I don't know how you get it across, but you just have a gift.
Hey, I'm canon now.
Yeah.
No, there's a character named Brad in Star Wars.
Oh, right. Okay.
He's a simian-type creature who reassembles Kylo Ren's helmet. His name is Brad.
Oh, right. Okay.
In the most least Star Wars-sounding name ever, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But to be fair, I hear it more than most people.
But that is fair, yeah. In my humble opinion, The Rise of Skywalker is great spectacle, great acting, the new Big Four especially, and okay storytelling. Mm-hmm. Star Wars has always delivered cool and amazing visuals, and The Rise of Skywalker is no exception. Adam is fantastic. His performance never cracked. Daisy, John, and Oscar delivered big time. They grounded the movie, did the heavy lifting, and made the movie better than its script.
Okay.
The story was bloated with too much nostalgia and convenience. I'm pretty sure it all hangs together, but it requires too much of my imagination and too much external information. They could have just cut out the winks, nods, and shortcuts and just fleshed out the story more, or gone MCU style and done a double ending. I think either way could have worked. In the end, however, they should be applauded for landing the plane without wrecking the entire franchise.
I think that is
totally fair.
That's the second best review I've heard of it.
I went totally dark months ago to avoid spoilers. I disagree with Mark in that I think spoilers can adversely influence the experience. Ignorance is not bliss, but too much knowledge can be a burden. It creates an alternate narrative that simultaneously plays while you watch the movie. That makes it hard to stay in the moment because you'll likely be switching back and forth between the two in your head. I had no expectations and walked in excited. Yes, it could have been better, but I enjoyed what they gave me. I walked out feeling happy and relieved more than anything else. Going totally dark is easier for me because I don't have social media. I just stayed away from any and all Star Wars labeled content after the first trailer. May the Force be with you, Derek in Denver, Colorado. Mm-hmm. I think that's a really good kind of summation of the overall experience. It could have been better. I enjoyed what they gave me.
Yeah,
and walked out feeling happy, and I did. And bear in mind, this is 3:30 in the morning. If I was going to be grouchy at any point that day, that was it. But it's there are a lot of the problem for me is not so much the overall experience. It's the things that niggle are big things. And they're not, I say, their things aren't insignificant for me.
Yeah, I got you.
It doesn't ruin the film. And like I said, I'd be happy to go and see it again if my schedule allows.
Yeah, right.
But it's just one of those things, it's not like I kind of came out of it. It's one of the things I had to be careful because my workmates hadn't been to see it yet. And some of them are very spoiler averse.
Right, okay.
Whereas obviously, as we talked about, I'd kind of initially accidentally, and then kind of through some choices gone and seen what ended up being quite an accurate plot.
I knew the broad strokes of it. I didn't know details.
I knew almost all of it by the end of by the time the film came out, which is, it's a shame.
Is that how you normally go in?
Nope. That's part of the reason it's a shame. Having said that, I don't necessarily think I would have liked it any more or less, not knowing those things going in, because theoretically, a lot of the stuff I read could have been like Force Visions or stuff like that. So, but, things like I already knew going in that Hux was the mole. I thought that was dumb before. I think it's dumb now.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a good service to Domhnall's character. I think it's a terrible service. And I think, like I said, the fact that Richard E. Grant has to come in, to me, is because they botched the Hux landing. Over through
that's in Game of Thrones, isn't it?
Yeah, Hux Landing is it's an orange wharf. But that, to me, like I say, I love Richard E. Grant, and I think he does a great job in the film. But I don't think you need him if you do Domhnall Gleeson's character to service over the trilogy. I think they dropped the ball, and this is what I mean. This is kind of what I mean about the singular directorial or writer vision all the way through. That's the thing about George, right? George knew, for all his faults, and there are some, certainly, like I said, certainly the prequels we've talked about and have plenty of them because there's not enough kind of oversight, it seems. But he knew this universe, and he knew where he wanted the story to go, and he'd done it in a way. Now, whether that was deliberate or not, and I think it's fair to say, arguably more latter than former, but it just feels like he knew that stuff inside out, and he'd done it in a way, whether it was deliberate or not, where he could make it work. And like you said, there's some stuff in there that's kind of clunky and McClunky.
Yeah.
But I think that this, I think we as an audience, and I have some sympathy for the notion of it's a kid's film, but then at the same time, I think those same people who say, it's a space opera, it's a space movie for kids about wizards, also want to tell me that The Last Jedi is a genius piece of subversive cinema. It's like, you can't have it both ways.
Yeah.
Either we can evaluate it as an adult thing, in which case it's not, I don't think, a subversive piece of cinema, and we can have a discussion about it, and that's fine, right? Clearly, from both the messages I've had here where people disagree or they agree, and the messages I've had behind the scenes where people said sometimes it was hard to listen to it's hard to listen to the review when we were particularly down on something.
I get it.
Irrespective of those things, like, there's a discussion to be had, and one of the things I will never do is tell people they can't talk about it or they can't hold opinions on it, because ultimately, the only thing I assert is that the people who think that Episode 7's a straight rip-off of Episode 4 and the people who think there's no similarity whatsoever can both be wrong, because the truth is somewhere in the middle. And I think with most things that's probably true, broadly speaking. That's the only real assertion, that's the only real hill I will even come close to coughing on, let alone dying. But there's a discussion to be had about these films, and I think it's a shame when people write off legitimate criticism as, it's a movie for kids. It's like, well, yeah, but we've got movies for kids that do this stuff properly. They do the stuff properly. They don't drop the ball on the big story beats.
Yeah.
This movie, for whether it's for pacing reasons or just for story, lack of story cohesion, doesn't do that for me. And this is the thing. Like I say, I'll quite happily go and watch it again, and maybe my opinion will change. Maybe some of those things will bother me less the second time round. But I really think, like, broadly speaking, this movie is going to occupy somewhere. In fact, let's have a look, because I've got, as we established earlier, I have the list. Where did I put Solo? Now, Solo would have gone up. Rogue One would probably go up.
Yeah, boy.
Force Awakens might overtake Last Jedi now, with the Rise of Skywalker as context.
Yeah, okay.
And I kind of, maybe even in terms of the new trilogy, I might go 7, 9, 8.
Yeah, that'd probably be my ranking for them.
Where they fit in the overall thing, maybe we should revisit.
All right, if people are that interested.
Well, we can at least kind of...
Yeah, are you interested in us re-ranking? If so, then send us a carrier pigeon.
How do you feel about Reorder...
to Hux's Landing.
How do you feel about Reorder 66? The Final Order.
I liked that.
You
didn't.
It felt too... There was a point that Mark made a few times in the review when we did the big one. There were a lot of things that took him out of the film that felt kind of meta, like they were trying to be too clever. And the Final Order versus the First Order, to me, that kind of felt like one. I don't think it was for him, but for me, it kind of felt a bit like, really? It was a little bit cringe.
I quite liked it, but that's fair enough.
Not in a film breaking.
It's a very minor thing.
Yeah, not in a film breaking way. It's
a very minor part to get wound up about for sure.
Yeah, well, it's like it wouldn't ruin the film for me, but it just seemed a bit like on the nose for me. Like, really?
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
Much like the First Order being Nazis in space in Episode 7. That level of like, you don't need to be that blatant about it.
Okay,
it's that kind of level of. That's kind of how it felt. But, let's say, broadly speaking, to kind of return to it, because obviously, I touched on it in my immediate reactions. I've talked about it since with numerous people. I like this film just fine.
Yeah, good.
I enjoyed my experience. Bear in mind, I was watching it, like I say, really early on a Thursday morning after a knackering week already, with the prospect of even more knackerment to come.
Yeah,
because that was my last week of work before Christmas as well. Yeah. So obviously there's a lot of loose ends to tie up. Making sure E14 was kind of going to run smoothly up until that point required a bit.
I took a couple of weeks off. I'm filming tomorrow. Leave me alone.
I'm not. No, I mean, you're not going to hear any complaints from me that I didn't have as much to schedule over Christmas. But obviously all those things. If any time was going to, if any film was going to make me grumpy, it would have been a midnight showing of anything. You could have played me Toy Story 4 on a midnight showing, and that's supposed to be kind of heartwarming and stuff.
Did we do a Toy Story 4?
They did. It's pretty good.
Oh, I've only seen the first 2.
Yeah. Oh, no, the 3, I would definitely recommend 3.
Yeah. I saw the first 2 like once at the cinema each. I didn't get as enamoured with them as some people did, but I wouldn't say I disliked them. No,
number 3 is really sweet. Like, it's just really, really nice story. And then number 4 it's good. It's entertaining. I watched it over Christmas. My in-laws are prone to, like, for Christmas, kind of renting a couple of movies for us to watch.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Some sort of fun, kind of upbeat stuff. And then we watched Toy Story 4 and The Lion King. I hasten to say live action because it's all CG lions. So
yeah, it seemed a really weird way to pitch. Was that Jon Favreau?
Yeah, it is, yeah. And it's great. He does a really good job. Really, really well done. Just incredibly impressive visuals.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, live action would be a strong term for it. Yeah. It's a remake, a CG remake, rather than animation. That's probably what they kind of class as live action nowadays, is not animation.
I guess so, yeah. Thanks, Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, still haven't done Aladdin yet.
No, same.
I've done Jungle Book, which was all right. Lion King was great. Yeah,
my wife liked Beauty and the Beast. She thought that was good.
I enjoyed that. Okay, I saw that at the cinema. I thought that was pretty good. But we're not Talk Disney, are we? I mean, we kind of are, but we're not.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what in terms of, obviously we've kind of talked about it in some depth. Does anything kind of jump out at you that we haven't talked about in terms of the film?
Yeah, I think we should spend a few minutes talking about the bits we really liked, because I feel like all we've done is talk about the stuff that didn't land for us or that we didn't like.
Oh, no, we talked about Babu Frick and Zori Bliss.
Yeah, is that the only bits of it you liked?
No, I thought there was loads of good stuff.
That's what I'm saying. Let's talk about the stuff you loved.
I did this, but people will just glom onto the stuff I say and just like, and they'll just hang on the negatives. Yeah, but I mean, I can do it. I'm quite happy to do it. Yeah, but all I'm saying is those people would have probably tuned out.
I'm just happy to talk Star Wars with you, buddy.
Of course. So yeah, I love Babu Frick and Zori Bliss.
Great.
Yeah.
I thought it was the best Anthony Daniels and C-3PO has ever been in a movie.
Interesting. I think certainly the sequels, they've given him more comedic opportunity.
Yeah. More than Attack of the Clones did, for sure.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, certainly they gave him opportunity, but I think they didn't give him much to work with in terms of, quality.
Here's a car horn and a slide whistle.
Yeah, quite. But yeah, it was So yeah, I think you're right. I think it's his kind of chops have been a bit more. They've been able to showcase his comedic range. I think.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, in the new films, without doing the like I say, the Attack of the Clone things. That's just irritating. I kind of R2 wasn't really there, but I actually quite like Dio.
See, he seemed like he was trying too hard to me. He was everything I'd hated about BB-8. It was just he was. I mean, Star Wars does this anyway, but he was very obviously put there to push merch.
Sure, yeah, but I kind of liked the whole where he was doing like the hello, no thank you, no thank you. I just kind of liked it.
One of my friends said, if you ever feel like you're just winging it and not sure what you're doing with life, just bear in mind that Disney has a warehouse full of Dio toys and no Baby Yodas to sell.
Yeah, there is that. Yeah. I don't... See, part of me thinks they couldn't have known that it would be that popular, but then part of me thinks, how? How could they not have known?
Not known?
It's adorable.
Yeah.
It's just, and like I said, given how many toys they've done, like, I'm amazed that Baby Yoda doesn't have its own Black Series figure. Like, why?
Well, yeah.
Why is that? Why is, all the side characters from Jedi Fallen Order getting their own Black Series before Baby Yoda gets a soft toy? It's madness.
Yeah.
Maybe it's out of respect to the UK listeners. Couldn't keep a straight face. It's funny because shortchanged. But good things. So Lando, I loved Lando. I thought Lando's inclusion was exactly how they should have treated all the sequel characters all the way through.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Get them in, get them to do something cool, get them to advance the plot, but then don't put them in to the point where they overstay their welcome. I thought they nailed it. The only thing with Lando, did he really need to be wearing the Donald Glover outfit?
Yeah, that bugged me a little bit.
A little bit on the nose. I liked the fact that Chewie's finally found somebody he can beat at Jederick, because he's beaten Finn and Poe at the beginning, and they're like, oh, he must be cheating. He must be. Yeah. Of course he knows how to play. He's 200 years old. Of course he knows. The only thing with that was weird, and it's not a knock. This is just an observation. It struck me that it was that felt more like a sequel pick to Solo, where he's being shown how to play the game properly.
Yeah, I get you.
It's weird.
Yeah, I get you.
It struck me as very odd. Like, maybe it's just he can't beat droids. That's it. Like, maybe he just can't beat droids, but he can beat other people.
Yeah,
maybe that's it. I don't know, but it was kind of. I didn't dislike that as a having that at the beginning. I thought it was quite funny. I liked the light speed skipping. I thought it was cool. Again, it was very much a visual metaphor for the first half hour of this movie. It's like, we're going to this planet now. Oh, we're going here. Okay, we're going here. It's all over the place, but in a really visually entertaining way.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Think as much as I found the idea that Palpatine was a deliberate inclusion tenuous, I really liked Ian McDiarmid's performance.
He left teeth marks in the scenery.
But that's what you want from him, And I kind of liked the idea that he was able to...
Oh, in no way am I saying it was a bad thing.
No, exactly, yeah. What I found really interesting was this whole thing of, he can... I think somebody mentioned this in a group thread, and it kind of caught me, and I thought, oh, that is cool. The idea that he was really desperate for Rey to end him, until he realized he could heal himself with the Force Dyad energy. Yeah. I was like, oh, do you know, that is kind of cool. I hadn't picked up on that, but that's nifty.
Yeah.
But that kind of thing of instantly, he goes back to kind of being a bit of a, a bit self-absorbed and a bit kind of narcissistic. It sort of felt, I don't know, I've never had a problem with Daisy Ridley's acting in this trilogy. So I thought that she was good. Again, given what she's given, I think she's done a really good job all the way through of the actual performance in the film. That's, I think, fair to say.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think that's a positive. Is the performances are good in this film.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
Broadly speaking, with
good direction. I think that is.
I think so. I think there's been a couple of touches on it over the course of this discussion from both us and from the listeners. But I think that JJ, with what he had to do and what he had to work with, which, as I say, a lot of people would say, oh, he had all the choices he could do in the world. You don't want that when you've got a deadline.
No.
You don't want you don't want the infinite choice of everything and then no direction on where to go.
Absolutely.
You don't want that. Like, it's actually quite, like I say, it's probably quite paralyzing. And
I wouldn't want to do that, would you?
No, definitely not.
Do you want McGeegan writing this film? Because I didn't.
Not especially. No, I do not.
I wasn't invited either.
No, absolutely. Likewise. And much like Carlos has touched on it in various Twitter threads and stuff, you do just kind of have to accept we have what we're given.
Yeah.
And what you do with it, kind of how you react to it, is up to you. And there's no, with the exception of obviously going down the route of getting in people's faces and being unpleasant to them, there's no wrong way to feel about this film. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As long as you're not trying to sort of, trying to infringe on others' enjoyment in order to kind of validate your own point of view, there's probably very few ways you can do it truly horrendously wrong. Yeah. So it is what it is. And say, given the job they had to do and the weight of expectation, even though I don't necessarily feel like with the weight of expectation, it entirely lived up to what it had to do. Yeah. I think given what they had to work with and given what they had to tie up, I think they did a great job.
I agree completely.
Yeah. And like I say, all the performances from all the leads, really, 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 really well done. And again, even the stuff that I don't like with the characters, I don't fall out with the acting that's kind of underpinning it. Even as much as I disagree with the choices they made for Hux, I think the performance is great. And like I say, I'm always gonna go back to that speech in Force Awakens because it's, like you said, teeth marks in the scenery, but it's exactly what it needs to be. And it's powerful for it.
It's really good.
Yeah. And it's just a shame that I don't know. I just feel like the writers didn't quite see what other people saw in that character. And it's not, and again, it's not like I would have done it better. I'm sure I wouldn't have. And like Vesuvi said, I could have done, if given the job, I'd have probably done some stuff that people liked and some stuff that people hated. I'm sure I would. And I'm sure it's not any one person writing this in a silo either. So it's like, I don't know, let's say the performances are great. This is the thing. The performances are really good. As Derek said, it's really great performances that kind of not rescue the script, but certainly give it more heft than it has any right to have otherwise.
Yeah, I get you.
Because it is, it's not without its flaws as a story, as a film, but what it does really well. Yeah. Which is bring out all the really great performances of the actors in this film. And even somebody like Mark, does a really great job as Luke.
Yeah, totally.
In this film. He's really good. He's exactly, given what JJ had to work with, Mark is exactly what he needs to be in this film. It's just, it is what it is. So there's a lot to like about it. I would have liked more space battle.
Yeah.
More prolonged space battle. Because there's a fair bit of it, but it was kind of, it felt like it was going for quantity over quality with the ship combat in terms of look at the number of ships.
Okay.
Versus Jedi does some really cool visuals with those ships. Like that shot of the Falcon kind of making its way through a corridor of ties, which was at one point the most complicated shot in cinema. Just because of the sheer volume of acetate that was doing the rounds. Yes. People passing out from fumes and there was nothing burning. That sort of level of stuff it felt like. But, I suppose it's a symptom of the modern filmmaking that stuff's a lot easier now. So it's easier to kind of just go, let's put more on the screen. That'll be better. Yeah. And it's not about the numbers. It's about how you use them. Maybe that's kind of what it boils down to. I don't know. How about you? Some stuff that stood out for you?
Yeah, I don't know if I liked Luke's presence or not. I don't know if I wanted to like it. I think it just didn't hit for me like it was supposed to. I thought Han actually had more emotional impact
Oh, that was I forgot about that. That's a really good point. That's a good bit. I think the Han Solo stuff, especially as they didn't do "It's a Force Ghost," they made that very clear that you're a memory, but I'm your memory.
Yeah,
I liked that a lot. Like I just liked the whole interplay, and they made it clear that it wasn't just he's a Force Ghost because anybody can be actually. Yeah, because that's again just raises more.
That
questions.
would have been stupid. Yeah,
exactly. But yeah, it's the Han thing was good. Yeah, I hadn't remembered that one, but we talked about it at the very beginning. But yeah, that's a good. I like that bit, especially as it mirrored the kind of the episode 7 bit with the dialogue and things like that. It was cool.
Yeah, that was really good. Yeah,
that's the kind of thing that a single directorial vision makes feel more smooth.
Yeah,
that's the kind of stuff that felt. You know, this is the trouble. Yeah, it felt. It's not even so much that it felt missing from before, but it's the stuff that ends up feeling forced in now because of that, because of that lack of cohesion.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, and this again, I talked about it in the original review, but also I still stand by it. It doesn't have to be a JJ trilogy. It could have been a singular Ryan vision as well. Yeah. Just one person kind of overseeing the whole thing and putting their kind of ownership on it, I think would have done wonders. And in a way, I wasn't happy with the way Colin Trevorrow was treated when Book of Henry came out and everybody started calling for his head because he didn't do a very good job on a film that was completely disconnected from Star Wars, which is also subjective anyway, because I guarantee you those same people wouldn't have been calling for the head of Rian Johnson if Knives Out had sucked.
Yeah, true.
Because I mean, don't get me wrong, I've heard nothing but good things, and I very much want to see it because apparently it's brilliant and it's right up my street in terms of subject matter. But those people, the same people who were calling for his head, wouldn't have been calling for Rian Johnson's head if Knives Out had just eaten the big
tanked,
yeah. They would have been still going, give him a trilogy, give him all the films, give him every film, give him a TV show, give him all the TV shows, give him some of the ones that we had before. Like go back.
You are not wrong.
Yeah, it's, there's people who like Rian Johnson, and that's not a bad thing. He seems like a nice guy, and he seems like he enjoys filmmaking. And I've seen films of his that I've really enjoyed, and there's stuff to like in Last Jedi. He has an eye for the visual, for damn sure.
Yeah,
but and like I say, he could have very easily been somebody to do this trilogy. But it suffers from that lack of one singular vision all the way through.
Yeah,
and like I say, although I'm unhappy with the way that Colin Trevorrow was dispatched, I'm really glad in a way that we didn't get 3 movies with 3 separate directors with 3 completely different visions.
God, can you imagine?
It's just, it's... The thing is, I kind of feel like Trevorrow might have been okay because if Jurassic World proved anything, it's that Colin Trevorrow can take a beloved property from decades past and weave it into the modern day in a way that's kind of vaguely meta but doesn't take you out of it.
Yeah,
because Jurassic World's a really good example of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, you were saying stuff you liked, other stuff.
Stuff like, the comedy dialogue was I'd applauded in Force Awakens, and in Last Jedi, I wasn't so much a fan of the comedy style of it.
Yeah,
and it seemed back on form. So he used to be a spice runner. He used to be a stormtrooper.
Yeah,
stuff like that was great.
Yeah,
the delivery was good. I liked the high fantasy side of it. Like I say, my only gripe about that is I do wish there'd been a little more explanation behind Palpatine, because he was such a massive part of the plot.
Yeah,
that who were all those Sith acolytes? We could have had. And it was a problem I had with Force Awakens as well. There was just a lot of background stuff we were given no information for, like the planet that gets destroyed by Starkiller Base.
Oh, yeah, Hosnian Prime,
Hosnian Prime, everyone just assumed was Coruscant because it looked so much like Coruscant, was not explained sufficiently in the film. And I think, maybe J.J. Abrams isn't the best editor.
It's entirely possible that that's all it is. Like, it's just, and it might be something where... It almost strikes me that, when if this was a video game, there's QA.
Yeah.
There's a phase that's designed specifically to obviously it picks out the technical problems, but also QA, rather than just simply testing, is also about, is this fun? And I feel like movies need that.
Yeah.
They need, they just need somebody kind of, I'm not suggesting they give any old chump a job from Twitter. Christ, can you imagine?
Yes, I can.
Search for a video. Search for a movie critic. It's like, man, like the worst reality show ever. No, who will risk everything for the chance to win nothing? But it almost feels like you need somebody to watch it back and just like detached from it. Mm-hmm. Just watch it back in isolation and just go, well, hang on.
Yeah.
This thing here, I don't necessarily have enough information about this. Like, is there a line of dialogue we could add that just says like, that's Hosnian Prime. That's the center of the Republic. Mm-hmm. That's one line you could do that will do it. Like the thing at the end of, could you, if I'm going to say if, because I'm going to try and give him the benefit of the doubt. If Palpatine was telegraphed, could we put in one line somewhere that seeds the fact that he's around? Mm-hmm. And it's just we're just missing little things. That's the trouble with it. Is it a lot of those little things add up over the course of 7 8 hours of movie. These things add up, and the decisions they take instead about different things, how best to put this? Like the decisions they make, there's lots of things like milking a thalasiren. Mm-hmm. And, I think you could probably edit down the Canto Bight scene.
You wouldn't be the first person to say that, no?
Yeah, I think you could edit it down at the very least. Mm-hmm. And I think you could use that to flesh out some of this stuff. Mm-hmm. There's got to be scenes that would stand to be edited down. I mean, you're an author, right?
In theory, yeah.
Yeah. Presumably, you might start with more words than you end up with in the book that then get cut for kind of pacing reasons or fleshing things out.
Exactly that reason, yeah.
Yeah, so you flesh things out because they make no sense.
Stuff up.
Yeah, you tidy stuff out. Yeah. You go, actually, I've already explained this. I don't need this. Mm-hmm. That's an editor's job, right? Is to kind of help you do that stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
And it sort of feels like there's like an abdication of editing responsibility that's kind of happening in these trilogies.
Yeah, seems that way.
And it's not to like a disastrous degree because it doesn't make these films unwatchable by any stretch. It's enough that those little things just niggle, and it doesn't. Like I say, it doesn't feel like. And this is part of the reason I think people get perturbed by it. Like I say, obviously with the caveat that people who get sufficiently perturbed should probably stop that and rein that in. I think the reason people get perturbed by it is because I don't think it would take much to fix some of these things. Mm-hmm. Yeah. A line of dialogue here and there, or a longer exposition. The example I always give is Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Mm-hmm. Now, you've seen it once, you've read it once, you made that clear earlier.
Yes, I have. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, there's a scene in the movie, and directorially, it's one of my least favourites, but story-wise, it's my favourite. Mm-hmm. Or one of my favourites. I actually really like Ordering.
Okay.
But there's a line in it, in the film, what if the map lies, the Marauders map? And they say, the map never lies.
Okay.
The line that's missing, for me, that's in the books, is, how can you be sure? We made it. Mm-hmm. We created it. And who do you think? Yeah. It's just something to kind of tie the thing together. Yeah. It's not a big thing, but it makes such a big difference to the story. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of level I'm talking about. Not a big, 5-minute monologue by, I suppose you have many questions about how I'm here. Well, let me tell you a tale. Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, I was blown to...
massive yacht.
I was blown to bits. That's absolutely true. And I was strewn across the galaxy. But thankfully, I still had loyal people elsewhere in the galaxy who kind of collected me together, like the Helivets.
With a dark dustpan and brush.
Exactly, yeah. It's like, we're the Helivets. We're the Sith Eternal. He's dead. He was on a space station that exploded. His head's over there. It's like, it doesn't need to be like a Bond villain exposition, like a stereotypical one. Because actually, if you look at the Bond villain expositions, they're not that long. No,
absolutely.
The stereotype is that they go on for ages and they do it at the most inopportune moments. And the second bit's true, but actually the expositions are never...
No.
They're never fantastically overly long. So like, it's, you know, you can do it in quick succession, especially, you know, and I feel, like I say, I know this movie is atrociously paced. Or I feel certainly quite strongly that it's atrociously paced. But I do feel like the choices they made, much like you touched on earlier, the choices they did make in terms of what to cut were weird choices that don't quite land for me.
Yeah, I go with that.
That's the kind of broad spectrum feeling about it. Say, really liked the job they did with all the, you know, like lots of the characterization stuff, my issues kind of with various bits of long-standing stuff aside. The performances were great. I think the writing they did, given the job they had to do and the scale of the job they had to do and the weight of expectation, they did the best job they could, and they did a really good job. Yep. So let's not undersell that, you know, as a fandom. But I do feel sometimes like Derek touched on nostalgia and convenience, and I would kind of add to that a desire to please everyone. Like I said, just put a kiss in, that'll please the Reylos.
Yeah.
So, but it doesn't, because they have different varying degrees of what they have in mind for how that should end with a Reylo satisfying ending. There was a tweet that I saw that was like a video of somebody seeing a private screening of like somebody had booked out the cinema to watch it with their friends. And at the end, obviously, Rey looks over and there's Force ghosts appear at the side, and they're shouting like, "Where's Ben? Where's Ben? Why isn't he there?" It's like, it's a fair question. Yeah, you know, he's just been redeemed, right? And that's what happens when you've been redeemed.
Yeah,
like, but. You know, there's varying degrees of what
Where's
people...
Anakin?
Where's Anakin? Great
Where's
question.
General Grievous?
Where's General... Yeah, okay. Where's Mazamida?
I just like him, is all.
Yeah. There's a little bit of Maz Kanata. I liked Maz Kanata.
Yeah, some people seem to object to her joining Resistance at the end. And I was like, it's fine.
But First Order blew up her house.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's the kind of level of understanding I can get of why you would join up with a cause, not... my boss is a bit of a tool.
98% sure Matt is Kylo Ren.
Well, hey, those uniforms are canon now.
Yeah.
But, you know, that Maz Kanata stuff, I've always kind of liked Maz Kanata as a general thing. I would like some sort of explanation as to how she ended up with Anakin's lightsaber. Yeah, again, it's a little thing like... That one probably would require a bit of a longer explanation. So I kind of understand why that one has to fall to the wayside, but it's but it's so obvious he didn't ever know. Yeah, totally. It's just like, it just feels like a bit of a, yeah. Anyway, overall, I enjoyed myself. And like I say, I don't want it to sound like I despise this movie and everything it stands for. Like, I don't, you know, there are things that bother me about it. They don't bother me enough to not want to go and ever see the film again. Like, sometimes it feels like I could probably wait for home release, but at the same time, I don't know that I will. I probably could. Like, I could probably survive. Yeah. I wouldn't feel like, if it went from the cinema before I had a chance to see it again, I wouldn't be like, oh. But I'd be a bit like... Oh. It's not so long these days, is it? No, it really isn't. Like, they're already advertising it for pre-order on iTunes. Other services are available. But that's probably that probably is, to be fair, where I'm going to buy. Yeah. Just me personally. But that's the point, right? It's, you know, there's such a small wait that it'll probably be out by March, April time maybe. Yeah. Just in time for my birthday. Hey, you know, serendipity. Exactly. So, and that will be the kind of thing where it's like, well, if people ask me what to get, that will be the kind of thing I say, like Blu-ray of Rise of Skywalker, vouchers for a digital copy. These things are all, you know, these all work for me. Yeah, these all work for me. So, you know, it's not like it's not like it's not canon for me, which is a weird take. Yeah. It's not like I don't. You know, it's not like I'm never going to watch it ever again out of any kind of weird principle of like, oh, it's not, you know, it's not, I would say it's probably not, it's not that it's not my Star Wars, because that's like, but I don't dislike that as a take, but I would say it's probably not the movie I'd go to first if I wanted to watch a Star Wars movie, which is fair, I think fair to say. Yeah. Unless I just got it, in which case, obviously, you know, I'd be like, oh, I should watch this. I just got it. But if I were to watch a film just on its own, probably just Rogue One or Revenge of the Sith or something. They're generally my go-tos because I enjoy those movies a lot. And yeah, Return of the Jedi. I mean, there's nothing to say. There's probably only the animated Clone Wars I would actually actively skip if it was on telly. If it was on TV or something, I'd probably skip it. And that's, like I say, mainly just because it's so forgettable. I feel like there's a reason I forgot it. My general sense of it.
Yeah, I know you've mentioned you're not the biggest fan.
No, that's fair. That's fair to say. But there's no, I've made efforts to watch Last Jedi again. I ended up not being able to because I didn't finish it because I think it was the fact I stopped working for Christmas. Because that was it was a commute thing. I just ended up not being able to finish it. And, obviously producing content gives you less time to consume.
Doesn't it just?
As a general, it's just one of those things. It's an economics thing. Time is also a currency. It's actually probably the one I wish I had more of the most. Yeah. Although, I don't know, just feel like it's on the up. Any kind of closing thoughts?
No. You?
I like it.
Cool.
Yeah. So, yeah. I think that's probably a good place to kind of, do a bit of housekeeping and
call it a day.
Say sayonara, yeah. So thank you very much for listening to Talk Star Wars, episode 195 from emotionally14.com. That's emotionally14.com. That's the website covered. We are a Star Wars podcast. Obviously, the last couple of weeks have been Rise of Skywalker heavy, but there's 193 episodes before that, and then there's other stuff as well. There's 193 numbered episodes, and then there's so many extra ones. It's a big old feed, and you can find it at talkstarwars.co.uk. You can find it on iTunes, YouTube. You
should.
Yeah, you absolutely should. You find it on iTunes, YouTube. YouTube, it's split because it's half on YouTube. On Talk Star Wars, half on Emotionally 14. I did a survey on Twitter about whether or not I should bother doing that, and I got 6 replies. I thought, you know what? This is obviously not a pressing concern for anyone either way. The majority said yes, but that was 4.
Yeah. 48%, 52%, and there's that number again.
No, it was 4 to 1 to 1. It was 4 yeses, 1 no, and 1 I don't really care. Yeah, exactly.
I don't care, but at the same time, cared enough to vote.
Yeah, exactly. I'll just stick a vote in. I think sometimes I probably should just label that one. Just show me the results, because that's sometimes what surveys do, and I quite like that as an idea. So we're on iTunes, Apple Podcasts is the same thing, Google Podcasts, Spreaker, Castbox, Podchaser, podcast.com probably. I don't know who keeps track. So many. The only one I know we're not on is Pandora, but I can't do anything about it, so such is life. Emotionally14.com, you can find the latest episode every Monday. If you can't wait till then and you want to join us and join the fun on Patreon, you can become a patron. That's the one at patreon.com/talkstarwars. For as little as $1 a month, you can get an ad-free version of the feed, which in the last couple of weeks, obviously with the Spoiler Town, has been actually worth a bit more. Yeah, because I had to put more of them in just to break it up.
Nicely done.
So you can get an ad-free version of the feed, and you get it a couple of days early. So you get it on Saturday UK time versus Monday.
Nice. Yeah,
so it's nice. You can start your weekend off with a nice little podcast about Star Wars.
I do.
Yeah, exactly. Start off with
nice to remember what I was talking about, to be honest.
Very true, very true. So that's what you get for patreon.com/talkstarwars. You also get early access to any extra shows that Rob Cast does. So TSW Roundtables, obviously the holiday special one proved to be worth the wait. And he does TSW Comics with Tim. I'm not sure what the plan is for that one in 2020, but that's mainly because I'm long overdue a catch up with those guys anyway. Always love to catch up with my Canadian brethren. And we'll touch more on the Canadian brethren shortly. Social media wise, you can get to Talk Star Wars on Twitter at Talk Star Wars. There's a Facebook page. There's a Facebook page for Emotionally 14. That's the one. I was sitting there going, hang on. It's a Facebook page for Emotionally 14 and for Talk Star Wars. There's Twitter for Emotionally 14 and for Talk Star Wars.
Yep.
There are Instagrams. They are there. Social media, Brad.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at RealBradHB. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/BradHarmerBarnes. You can check out my other show for Emotionally 14, which is Fire When Ready, Adventures in Star Wars Tabletop Gaming. You can find all of their videos at emotionally14.com and on Emotionally 14's YouTube channel. And you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Fire When Ready UK. And if you're feeling especially so inclined, you can, of course, buy my books through Audible and Amazon.
Yes, you can. And on Talk Star Wars, every post, there's a little link with Brad's name next to it, saying you can go there and you can get the books from there. And in return, obviously, Brad gets a book sale and whatever that entails kind of financially. And there's a little bit of pennies for Emotionally 14's way for the routing, for kind of speeding up the whole process, making it easier to do. I can be found on Twitter and Instagram at Rob Wade Vision, and that's where you can keep up with everything I'm doing, such as it is. And also, obviously, there's the Talk Star Wars and Emotionally 14 Facebook pages and Twitters I mentioned. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Star Wars Commonwealth Podcast Network, so I'm going to do that right now. So in addition to Talk Star Wars, obviously representing for Emotionally 14 directly, we also have a couple of Emotionally 14 endorsed podcasts on there, and the Star Wars Commonwealth is host to 8 wonderful shows. So Talk Star Wars, Tumbling Saber, they're endorsed. Generation X-Wing, I need to speak to Rob about that. The Nerd Room, endorsed. Rogue Squadron, not endorsed, but I love them. San Diego Sabres, something is happening. I think they have risen.
There's been an awakening.
There has been an awakening, so that's good. Retro Inc., I'm hearing rumblings. And Sandcrawler Cast with Dan and Mike. So 8 wonderful outlets producing quality content every week for you. And you can find all of them on the web at StarWarsCommonwealth.com and take your first steps into a larger world. This has been it for Talk Star Wars, episode 195 this week. Thank you very much for listening, and we will see you next week for episode 196. In the meantime, be good to yourselves, be good to each other. Mean that above all, especially in the era of, movie reactions not being what people want. Be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and as always, may the Force be with you.